To deal with my family's pressure to get married, I paid $9.99 online to hire a young woman for a sham marriage. Who knew that when we went to register at City Hall, the clerk would look at me with utter contempt and say, "You're already married, and you're trying to register again. Are you unaware of the laws against bigamy?" Walking out of City Hall, I stared dumbfounded at the printout of the marriage certificate. The woman I'd hired sighed regretfully beside me, "Mr. Anderson, you're already married. Why did you waste money hiring me?" Then, with a quick, "The deposit is non-refundable," she scurried away. I stood there, stunned, unable to process what had just happened. I'd never even held a girl's hand, so how could I possibly be married? I looked down at the printout again, and the man in the certificate photo was definitely me. As for the woman, her name was Chloe Sterling. She was beautiful, but I had absolutely no idea who she was. I immediately took out my phone, snapped a picture of the document, and sent it to a contact with a black profile picture. "Help me find out who she is." The reply was instant. "Received." Suppressing my confusion, I rode my beat-up electric scooter into a luxurious Beverly Hills neighborhood. Just as I parked, I overheard the maids talking behind me. "Who is he? He's so handsome." "Shh, don't talk like that. He's the Anderson family's unacknowledged illegitimate son. His mother showed up pregnant all those years ago demanding something, and the shameless old woman has been making excuses to hang around the Anderson estate ever since. He, at least, knew his place and moved out when he was in middle school. Do you know why he's back today?" I frowned, pretending not to hear, and walked straight into the living room. My mother, Laura, who was waiting by the door, saw me and anxiously pulled me upstairs. "Come with me to see your brother first. By the way, did you get the marriage certificate?" I replied flatly, "I got it." "Good. You need to remember your place. Sophia is your brother's fiancée. A top-tier family like the Sterlings is completely out of your league as an illegitimate son. Only your brother is worthy of her." A flicker of irony crossed my eyes. Sophia Sterling had pursued me for 4 years at UCLA, only to get together with my brother, Evan, on graduation day. Laura had demanded I find someone to marry immediately to completely sever any possibility with Sophia. Ever since we were kids, whenever Evan and I had a conflict of interest, she would demand that I give in unconditionally. I looked at her coldly. "We agreed. This is the last time. This was to repay my debt to her for giving me life." Laura looked impatient. I know. When we reached Evan's room, Sophia greeted me with a smile. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Before I could speak, Laura jumped in. Ethan got married today." Evan feigned a look of surprise. "Who is she? Is she even better than Sophia?" Laura scoffed. "How could that be possible? You couldn't find anyone in all of Los Angeles with a higher status than Miss Sterling. What kind of good family could he find? Probably just some street trash. He didn't even dare bring the girl, probably afraid her poverty would offend your eyes." Evan's voice was tinged with jealousy. "I don't know. Ethan is so handsome, otherwise Sophia wouldn't have chased him for 4 years. What good is being handsome? With his status, only some piece of trash he met somewhere would be willing to marry him. Miss Sterling just treated him like a toy to play with. Only you, with your status, are worthy of her." The woman in the photo, with her looks and aura, didn't seem like street trash at all, but I couldn't be bothered to argue. At that moment, Evan, having put on his watch, wanted to put on his leather shoes but found his shirt was too tight to bend over comfortably. He gave me a slight smile. Laura immediately shoved me. "You useless thing, have you no sense? Your brother is having trouble. Hurry up and help him put on his shoes." My expression turned cold. "You can help him yourself." "Ethan, what is this attitude? Do you think you've grown wings just because you got married? You'll still have to rely on the Anderson family in the future." Laura's voice rose. "If you don't get on your brother's good side now, one day you and your wife will come begging to him. Besides, the Anderson family raised you. You should be their workhorse." Before I could retort, my father, Robert Anderson, suddenly appeared at the door. "An important guest is about to arrive. What are you all arguing about in here?" Laura immediately started wailing. "It's this wicked son. He got his certificate today and now he doesn't even respect me as his mother." Robert Anderson looked at me. "Married? Why didn't you let the family introduce you to someone? Do you have the certificate? Let me see." Faced with this rare show of concern from my estranged father, I paused before pulling the printout from my bag. The next second, Laura snatched it away. "Let me see what this trashy wife of yours is named." Meanwhile, Evan asked curiously, "Dad, who's coming that has you so on edge?" The thought of the guest made Robert's face light up with pride, and he excitedly announced a name. "Chloe Sterling." Hearing that name, I froze. Seeing our confusion, Robert explained with a proud expression, "It's normal that you don't know her. She's very mysterious. Even I've never met her. She is Sophia's aunt, and at only 28, she has already become the true head of the Sterling family." Laura gasped instinctively. "Doesn't that make her a better heir than Sophia? She's far more capable than some eldest granddaughter." Robert snapped irritably, "What are you talking about? Miss Sterling is already married." I narrowed my eyes. "Married? If the person on my marriage certificate was really her, Then it seemed Chloe Sterling must know what was going on. Laura sounded slightly disappointed. Who is her husband? To be even luckier than our Evan. Robert frowned in thought. I don't know. It said that both she and her husband dislike social events. Why would she personally visit today? Laura stated decisively. It must be because Evan is so outstanding that he's caught the Sterling family's attention. After saying this, she shoved the unread printout back into my hand and grabbed Evan's. Her face flushed with excitement. Her mocking smile showed more investment than even Evan's actual mother. Just then, the butler came upstairs to announce that the Sterlings were about to arrive. Hearing this, Robert hurried downstairs, casually saying as he passed me, "You haven't been home in a long time. Stay for a celebratory drink before you go." I nodded in agreement. I had to stay and see just who this Chloe Sterling was. In the room, Laura gazed at Evan, who was preparing to marry into a wealthy family, her eyes filled with irrepressible joy. 20-some years ago, if it hadn't been for Eleanor Anderson's appearance, Laura would have been the one to marry Robert Anderson. She hated Eleanor, so for revenge, she gave birth on the same day and switched their 2 babies at the hospital. Now, her biological son, Evan, was the young master of the Anderson family, while I, the true heir, was despised as an illegitimate son. After going downstairs, I leaned against the wall in a shadowy spot by the staircase, waiting quietly for the Sterlings to arrive. After some time, Eleanor Anderson came down, supported by a maid. She wore a purple dress, her figure thin, and she exuded a scholarly, gentle air. The maid whispered, "Ma'am, you're not well. You should stay upstairs." Eleanor coughed while shaking her head. "No, this is such an important day for Evan. I can't miss it." I watched her back, my eyes filled with a deep, filial affection. It was ironic, but in the Anderson household, she was my only source of warmth. When I was a child, Laura often withheld food from me. After Eleanor found out once, she started leaving food for me in the garden at the same time every day, and she did this for 12 years. If it weren't for Eleanor's kindness, I probably would have given up on myself long ago. Watching her walk away, hearing her intermittent coughs, I frowned with worry. Just then, there was a commotion at the entrance. The Sterlings had arrived. Robert and Eleanor greeted them at the door, and after a few pleasantries, they stepped aside as a large group swept into the house. I spotted Chloe Sterling immediately. Her face was even more beautiful than in the photo, her aura cool and sharp. Sensing my gaze, she suddenly looked over, and her piercing eyes made my heart skip a beat. I wanted to decipher the emotion in her eyes, but Chloe quickly looked away. This left me confused. Did her reaction mean she knew me or not? Robert smiled obsequiously. "Miss Sterling and your husband? Didn't he come with you?" As he said this, I felt Chloe's gaze sweep over me again. He couldn't make it, and with that, the crowd escorted her towards the main reception room. Sophia, who had pursued me for 4 years, followed behind. In her formal dress, she looked more mature and composed than she had in college. She didn't see me, just chatted distractedly with Evan. I was standing there quietly when Laura grabbed my arm, hissing in a low voice, "Ethan, what are you still doing here? Are you still not over Sophia? I'm telling you, she's your sister-in-law now." I shook her off with a sneer. "Don't worry, I'm not interested in being a homewrecker. Mr. Anderson asked me to stay for a celebratory drink." Ever since I was old enough to understand, I had always referred to Robert Anderson as Mr. Anderson. Laura gritted her teeth in anger. "That was just him being polite, and you took it seriously? You really don't know your own worth. Even I can't attend a formal event like this for fear of embarrassing the family. What makes an illegitimate son like you think you deserve a seat at the table? Get out of here now." I frowned impatiently and was about to speak when I saw Chloe walk out onto the balcony to take a call. I gave Laura a perfunctory reply and followed her. The moment I got close, Chloe, who had been on the phone, hung up and fixed me with an icy stare. I stopped in my tracks, met her dangerous gaze, and with a slight smirk, I tentatively called out, "Honey." Chloe's eyes remained cold. I stared directly at Chloe, observing her reaction. Upon hearing the name, the chill around her intensified, but her expression showed no flicker of emotion as she turned to leave. I quickly moved to block her path. "You don't know me?" Chloe looked down at me condescendingly. "Move. Should I know you? Sir, I am a married woman. Please have some self-respect." I was a bit baffled. She clearly didn't recognize me, yet she claimed to be married. Could City Hall have made a mistake with the records? "May I ask who your husband is?" "None of your business." Another 4 cold words. I took out the copy of the marriage certificate and held it in front of her. "Miss Sterling, the woman on here is you, isn't it?" Chloe's gaze fell on the man's name, and she sneered. "Mr. Anderson, an original document isn't that expensive, is it? If you're going to forge something, at least be professional about it." With that, she didn't return to the living room but strode through the small garden towards the parking lot. I chased after her, wanting to explain, but was blocked by 2 bodyguards. I shouted at her, retreating back, "Miss Sterling, the certificate is real. If you don't believe me, you can check at City Hall." Chloe got into her car and left without a word. while her personal assistant stayed behind. I returned to the living room and ran right into Evan. He had just seen me harassing Chloe, and a strange glint appeared in his eyes. Robert was worried. Why did Miss Sterling leave? Was our hospitality lacking in some way? Evan clenched his fists, his tone hesitant. I saw Ethan bothering Miss Sterling. She left in a huff and left a message. She said you should discipline your family members properly. With Ethan acting like this, won't the Sterlings think our family has no manners? Robert's face instantly turned ashen. I had lost Chloe's car on my scooter and was fuming when my phone suddenly rang. I answered to a woman's voice. Boss, I've got the information on Chloe Sterling. Chloe Sterling is the second daughter of the old Mr. Sterling. Rumor has it she's cold-blooded and ruthless, which is why she was sent abroad as a child. Everyone thought the Sterling family business would be handed over to the eldest son, Sophia's father. No one expected Chloe to suddenly return last week and use some kind of lightning-fast tactics to force the old man into retirement, taking direct control of Sterling Corporation. I frowned. Find her contact information and schedule. I'll go find her later. After hanging up, I rubbed my temples. This was getting complicated. With Chloe's status, getting a meeting with her wouldn't be easy. I shouldn't have run my mouth and called her honey today, scaring her off. I sighed, started my little scooter, and slowly headed home. I left the bustling city center and arrived at a rundown neighborhood on the outskirts of LA. When I moved out of the Anderson estate in middle school, I didn't have much money, so I could only afford to rent an old house here. I got used to it and never moved. Just as I was about to turn the corner to my place, an elderly woman in her 80s or 90s suddenly darted out from the side of the road. I slammed on the brakes, nearly hitting her. I initially thought it was a scam, but I quickly noticed the woman was well-dressed and had a tag around her neck with a contact number, followed by the words, "If this woman is lost, please call this number. A generous reward will be offered." Clearly, she had Alzheimer's. I immediately took out my phone and dialed the number on the tag. The dazed-looking woman in front of me suddenly grabbed my wrist, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "Grandson-in-law. You're my grandson-in-law." My mouth twitched. I'd been single for 22 years. How did I gain another wife today? I found it amusing and asked casually, "Ma'am, who is your granddaughter? What's her name?" "Oh, right. Her name is CH. What was it again?" The name she had just remembered was forgotten the moment she tried to say it. The old woman grew anxious, her mouth opening and closing, but she just couldn't get the words out. "Ma'am, please don't worry. It's okay if you can't remember," I said soothingly before dialing the number. At that moment, on a street not far away, Chloe was sitting in her Bentley, her expression dark. Her subordinate, Mark, stood beside her, barely daring to breathe. It was my negligence. I let the matriarch wander off. She said nothing, an icy aura radiating from her. The old woman was usually in a daze. Who would have thought she'd have a moment of clarity today, send everyone away, and sneak out? They only discovered after checking the surveillance footage that she had taken a bus to the suburbs by herself. This area was older, and many streets lacked security cameras, forcing them to conduct a grid search. Just then, her phone rang. Chloe answered immediately. My calm voice came from the other end. "Hello, I have your elderly relative with me." Upon hearing this, the atmosphere in the car froze. Everyone sprang into action. Someone prepared to call the police, while Mark began tracing the signal of the incoming call. Chloe's eyes were sharp, her voice frigid. "How much money do you want?" "Just kidding. I just wanted to tell you to take better care of her in the future." I then gave her the address and hung up. 5 minutes later, they arrived at the location, but I was long gone. Only a police officer was there, waiting with the old woman. Chloe asked, "Grandma, how did you end up here?" The old woman whispered mysteriously, "I came to find my grandson-in-law. He lives around here." Chloe paused. "Grandma, you don't have a grandson-in-law." "Impossible. I saw him." That heartless boy handed me over to the police and left. "Oh, give me your phone for a second." Chloe handed her the phone, and the old woman copied the number from the recent call log into a small notebook. She said happily, "Finally, I have my grandson-in-law's contact information." The next morning, I received a call from my university mentor, Professor Wallace. When I entered his office, I found Evan and Laura were also there. Evan and I both attended UCLA. He considered himself a top student, and to avoid outshining him, I had deliberately chosen the least popular major, energy and power engineering. Unexpectedly, renewable energy suddenly became a hot field 2 years ago, and Evan immediately switched his major, becoming my classmate again. It made some sense for Evan to be here, but why was Laura? Just as I was thinking this, Professor Wallace spoke with a grave expression. "Ethan, your graduate school recommendation has been revoked. Your mother said you have a questionable character and background, making you ineligible. Is there some misunderstanding between you two? You should apologize to her quickly. You have a bright future. Don't let a moment of anger ruin it." Evan sighed and said to the professor, "Professor Wallace, Ethan's mother is just trying to do what's best for him." He then turned to me. "You offended Miss Sterling, and she's put the word out that she wants you to disappear from Los Angeles." It took me a moment to realize Miss Sterling meant Chloe, but I had only exchanged a few words with her, and she didn't seem angry when she left yesterday. Evan, on the other hand, was a habitual liar. While I was thinking, Evan walked up to me. Ethan, Dad bought you a plane ticket. He wants you to go abroad for a while to let things cool down. Otherwise, even the Anderson family can't protect you. A flash of mockery appeared in my eyes. Weren't they just afraid I'd drag the family down with me? Seeing that I didn't take it, Evan produced a bank card. Are you worried about supporting yourself abroad? There's $50,000 here. It's my personal money for your living expenses. Use it for now, and if it's not enough, I'll give you more after I get my allowance. Only $50,000 from the great young master of the Anderson family? I found it laughable. But just then, Laura snatched the card away. Evan, what are you doing? The Anderson family buying him a plane ticket is already more than generous. She glared at me and ordered, pack your things and leave the country immediately. I've already processed your withdrawal from the university. I looked at her coldly. What gives you the right to make decisions for me? Because I'm your mother. Besides, with your grades, you'd probably struggle to even graduate. You might as well go out and start working to earn money sooner. Professor Wallace couldn't help but interject. Laura, you're mistaken. During his time here, Ethan has. Before he could finish, Laura cut him off. Professor, you don't need to speak up for him. Do you think I don't know what he's like? He only wants to go to grad school because Evan is going. He should take a good look in the mirror and see what he is. What right does he have to compare himself to Evan? The professor was taken aback and looked at Evan in surprise. I recall you weren't recommended for grad school, nor did you take the entrance exam. Evan smiled humbly. I'm being specially admitted. Seeing the professor's inquiry, he feigned modesty. It's Drive E. His clean hydrogen fuel research was successful. He filed a patent and was awarded an honorary doctorate. I was stunned. Drive E? Since when was I specially admitting Evan? To repay Eleanor's kindness, I had been providing technical support to the Andersons company for years under the alias Drive E, fabricating a story about being a student she had sponsored. Evan continued his fabrication. My mother sponsored Dr. E's education back in the day, so after he completed his studies, he found our family and said my mother was his savior. He's been providing technical support to our company all these years and probably wouldn't refuse any request from me. Professor Wallace, believing the story, asked where Drive E worked. The dean is going to invite Drive E to teach at our university. Professor Wallace was overjoyed and said to me, Ethan, your research area is the same as Dr. E's. I'll introduce you to him. If Drive E is willing to speak on your behalf, there might still be hope for your grad school recommendation. Evan feigned concern. Professor Wallace, is that really okay? The Sterlings are the wealthiest family in Los Angeles, and they donate a lot of research funding to our school every year. A PhD like him is in high demand right now. If Drive E is willing to step in, the university will definitely choose to support him. Evan sighed. But Drive E is doing this out of respect for my mother. If it were for me, he would certainly help without hesitation. But Ethan is my father's illegitimate son, which puts him at odds with my mother. Ethan, how about I go ask Drive E for you? I refused with a cold smile. Evan was acting like a pathetic clown. I said to Professor Wallace, Professor, you know I never really wanted to go to grad school anyway. Laura sneered. Don't waste your breath. After offending Miss Sterling, you think you can find a job in Los Angeles? Dream on. I refuse to believe one person can control everything in this city. If you really can't find a job, you can come be my teaching assistant, Professor Wallace said, exasperated, then turned to me with a gentle tone. A warmth spread through my chest. Professor, it's just a small misunderstanding between Miss Sterling and me. Once it's cleared up, everything will be fine. You don't need to worry. Seeing this, Evan clenched his fists and said sarcastically, Ethan, are you planning to go bother Miss Sterling again? She's already married. This really isn't a good look for you. As expected, Laura flew into a rage and slapped me hard across the face. I stared at her in disbelief, shocked that she would strike me right in front of Professor Wallace. Laura showed no remorse, pointing at my nose and yelling, It's been a few years, and it seems you've forgotten the family rules. Apologize to your brother right now and promise you'll never go near the Sterlings again. The warmth in my eyes slowly faded, leaving only an icy chill. It was clear she hadn't taken my last-time declaration seriously at all. Did she still see me as that submissive, ignorant boy who always deferred to Evan? If reason wouldn't work, then she couldn't blame me for being merciless. Evan watched from the side, a sense of triumph rising within him. As children, I had always bowed and scraped before him, never talking back when scolded, never fighting back when hit. After I moved out, we met again in college. I was still the same poor kid, but I had started to stand up straight in front of him. Had a few years without a beating made me forget my place? Today, he would let Laura teach me a lesson. Just as Evan had this thought, he saw me slowly walk up to him. As he curled his lips into a smirk, expecting an apology, I suddenly looked up and drove my fist hard into his face. Evan's head spun, his consciousness reeling from the blow. Laura shrieked and lunged at me. Ethan, How could you hit him? I whipped my head around, an aura of pure menace radiating from me. My expression stunned Laura, freezing her in place. What are you doing, you ungrateful wolf? I'm your mother. Are you going to hit me too? My voice was ice, each word deliberate. You were never a kind mother, so don't blame me for not being a filial son. From now on, stop meddling in my life. Anything you do to me, I will return to Evan, doubled. I looked away from her and bowed deeply to Professor Wallace, thanking him for his care over the past 4 years and promising to return once my affairs were settled. With that, I turned and left without hesitation. Laura only snapped out of her stupor after my figure had completely disappeared from the room. Just as I walked out of the campus gates, my contact, Jessica, called. Boss, I figured it out. I understand why Chloe Sterling claims to be married but doesn't know you. The Sterling family looks glamorous on the surface, but for a family that large, the internal strife has been intense these past few years. The old patriarch favors the eldest son's family and wanted to hand control to them, so Chloe, as the youngest daughter, was constantly suppressed. A few years ago, the patriarch tried to marry her off to several unsuitable men, causing a huge uproar. It only stopped when Chloe announced she had already married a man from an ordinary family. But this husband of hers is quite interesting. He has never appeared in public, nor has he ever attended any Sterling family events. In conclusion, there can only be one truth. Jessica drew out the last word, trying to be dramatic, but before she could state the obvious, I had already figured it out. Did you find her schedule and contact information? Jessica was a bit deflated. I'll send you her schedule for the next few days shortly. I couldn't get her private number. That's fine. I'll go find her myself. For someone of Chloe's status, a private number would be top secret, so it was normal not to find it. Jessica immediately turned gossipy. She's surrounded by bodyguards. You won't be able to get close easily. Are you planning to use forceful methods or, let's keep a low profile for now, I said, a roguish smile playing on my lips. At the entrance of Sterling Corp, I straightened my delivery driver uniform, held a package, and walked up to the front desk. A delivery for Miss Sterling. It requires her personal signature. The receptionist made a call to the executive office before allowing me to go up. I took the private elevator to the 88th floor penthouse. Stepping out, the space opened up before me. An entire department of over 100 secretaries worked here, all dedicated to serving Chloe Sterling alone. I followed the secretary who came to get me and arrived smoothly at the CEO's office. After a knock, a pleasant voice from inside said, "Come in." Just as I thought I was about to meet Chloe, a figure suddenly blocked my path. "Stop," Mark frowned, sizing me up. "Mr. Anderson? What are you doing here?" Mark's expression was grim. He clearly remembered me harassing Chloe at the Anderson estate yesterday. Chloe hadn't pressed the issue, but here I was, pushing my luck, now disguised as a delivery driver to bother her again. He waved over 2 bodyguards. "What's going on? Are we letting any random person up to the top floor without checking their ID? Get him out of here immediately." My expression remained unchanged. "What do you mean by that? Does Sterling Corp look down on delivery drivers?" Mark sneered. "Nice try turning that around. We respect every profession, but are you a delivery driver? Do you have an ID to prove it?" The moment Mark finished speaking, a work ID was thrust in his face. His expression froze. "You didn't just register today, did you?" The ID was opened, revealing the registration date. Mark was shocked. 8 years ago? You're actually a delivery driver. Can't a guy work his way through school? I said in a lazy tone, speaking towards the office door. "Miss Sterling, are you ready to cooperate with my work now?" A pleasant voice came from within the room. "Let him in." I shot a provocative glance at Mark, and seeing him about to explode, I walked around him and entered the office. Chloe's office was decorated in a minimalist luxury style that gave it a cold, impersonal feel. After signing the document in her hand, she finally looked up, her bright eyes betraying no emotion. I pointed to the delivery slip. "Miss Sterling, sign here." Her gaze lingered on me for a moment before she picked up a pen to sign. At that moment, I dropped a bombshell. "Miss Sterling, the truth is, you're not married at all, are you?" The tip of her pen stopped, hitting the paper with a soft thud. She looked up, her icy gaze locking onto me. I knew I had guessed correctly. When registering at City Hall, you have to fill out your personal information by hand, so a mistake was impossible. Chloe had publicly claimed to be married, yet she didn't know me at all. After Jessica's investigation, there was only one possible truth. To deal with her family's pressure, Chloe had invented a fake husband. She had never actually been to City Hall, which is why she didn't know we were legally married. I said seriously, "Miss Sterling, I know this sounds incredible, but we are really married." Chloe slowly sat up straight, a playful look on her face. "Mr. Anderson, don't waste your energy. Even if I were single, I would never marry you just to spite Sophia." I was taken aback. She knew about my past with Sophia and assumed I was using her for revenge, which was why she didn't believe me. I quickly explained, "I'm not here because of Sophia. I'm here to divorce you. I'm not interested in your romantic entanglements." Chloe cut me off, quickly signing the slip and handing it to me. "Don't come bother me again, or I won't be so polite." Hearing that, I got a little angry myself. "You haven't been polite already, have you? You're the one who put the word out to make me disappear from Los Angeles." Chloe frowned. "When did I?" Before she could finish, her phone rang with a special ringtone for her grandmother. She answered immediately, and a caregiver's voice came through. "Miss Sterling, the matriarch is missing again." Chloe rushed out anxiously. I tried to follow and explain, but Mark blocked me again. "Mr. Anderson, I advise you to stop here." And just like that, I was escorted out of Sterling Corporation. Just as I reached my front door, I suddenly turned around and saw the same old woman from before, tiptoeing furtively behind me. I had a look of resignation on my face, and as I was about to speak, she grabbed my wrist. "Grandson-in-law, don't you dare try to abandon me again." Inside my rented house, the old woman sat at the dining table and downed 3 glasses of water in a row. I frowned and said seriously, "I'm really not your grandson-in-law." "Yes, you are." The little old lady was stubborn, and she hugged her glass and chugged another one. I knew I couldn't reason with her, so I took out my phone and dialed the number from before. It was answered after just 1 ring. "Hello." The woman's voice sounded vaguely familiar, but before I could say anything, the old woman snatched the phone from my hand. At that moment, Chloe was leading a group of people searching the area. She appeared calm, but she was anxious inside. Her grandmother didn't just have Alzheimer's. At 87, her body's organs were failing, and her life could be in danger at any moment. The moment her phone rang, she answered it, only to hear her grandmother's robust voice. "You brat, don't come get me. I'm with my grandson-in-law." The number was from the same young man as last time, so her grandmother was with him again? Chloe's face darkened as she asked, "Where are you? You think I can't find you just because you won't tell me? You're not allowed to come find me, and don't send anyone to look for me either." Chloe ran a hand through her hair, covered the mouthpiece, and whispered to the primary physician, "Given her condition, can we forcibly bring her back?" The doctor shook his head and replied softly, "The matriarch can't be agitated right now. It's best to go along with her wishes. Besides, that young man from last time didn't seem like a bad person." Chloe looked helpless and tried to coax her over the phone. "Grandma, I at least need to bring you your medicine." "No need for medicine. I brought it with me. Don't you worry. Just wait patiently for me to bring my grandson-in-law home." After saying this, the old woman hung up. She handed the phone back to me with a triumphant look. Grandson-in-law all settled. I was completely bewildered. What kind of irresponsible relative was this? Just leaving an elderly person with a total stranger? As I was about to call back, my iMessage pinged. Someone had sent me a friend request via my phone number, with the message, "The elderly woman's granddaughter." I accepted the request, and the granddaughter quickly sent a message. "Could you please take care of my grandmother for a while? She hasn't been well lately and can't be agitated." I scoffed and typed a cold reply. "Inconvenient. This isn't a charity." Before I could finish typing, I heard a noise from the kitchen. I hurried over and saw the old woman boiling an egg. I asked casually, "Hungry? You can't just eat an egg." A kind smile appeared on the old woman's wrinkled face. "Grandson-in-law, you can use the egg on your face. It will help with the swelling." I froze. Perhaps I hadn't even realized it myself, but after being hit by my own mother today, though I acted like it didn't bother me, a layer of coldness had enveloped me, separating me from the world. In this moment, the old woman's words melted that chill, and warmth returned to my eyes. Then, I looked back at my phone and saw a notification pop up in the chat with the granddaughter. A transfer of $30,000 had come through, with the note, "This is for 1 week's expenses. Let me know if it's not enough." I looked at what I had been typing and edited my message. Fine. I didn't understand why I was suddenly getting involved, but I figured it must be because she had paid so much. Meanwhile, at the Anderson estate, Evan's cheek was swollen high, the imprint of my fist clearly visible. Laura kept her head down. "That little bastard Ethan. He must be jealous that you're marrying Miss Sterling. When your father gets back, I'll have him teach Ethan a harsh lesson." Just then, Eleanor dragged her frail body downstairs, her voice weak but firm. "Ethan is not that kind of person. You must have done something to provoke him first." Evan, though resentful, changed the subject. "Mom, could you invite Drive E to be a mentor at UCLA?" Eleanor immediately refused. "Evan, you can't hold a past kindness over someone's head. Besides, Drive E has done more than enough for the family company over the years." Evan wasn't surprised. "UCLA is the best university here. Maybe Drive E himself would want to go. We could help connect him with the school, which would be a way of repaying him for all his help." Eleanor found this reasonable, so she took out her phone and opened iMessage. "All right, I'll ask him." Evan sat beside Eleanor and said, "Drive E has done so much for our family. Any debt of gratitude has long been repaid. Shouldn't the family host a dinner for him? It would be better to ask him in person then, wouldn't it?" Drive E never refused Eleanor's requests. As long as he came, Evan was sure that if he asked to be his graduate student, Drive E wouldn't say no. Convinced, Eleanor sent a message to Drive E. "Ethan, do you have time to come over to the house? When I saw that message, my heart leaped into my throat. Why would Eleanor suddenly want to meet? Was her health failing? Thinking of her cough, I grew extremely anxious and stood up to leave. I'm free. I'm on my way now. But just as I was about to rush out, another message from Eleanor arrived. No need to come now. Are you free on Saturday? I'd like to treat you to a casual meal. I then realized I was letting my concern get the better of me. Remembering the scene of being pushed out of the Anderson family 10 years ago, a bitter smile touched my lips. After all these years, it was probably time to see her again. I replied to her message. I should be the one treating you. Saturday at 6 p.m., I'll be there. I then sent her the location of a restaurant. When I closed the chat with Eleanor, I saw that Chloe had sent me a few messages with instructions on how to care for her grandmother. Seeing this, I quietly went into the spare bedroom and took a short video for Chloe. On a nearby street, two fully equipped, discreet vans were parked. Chloe was inside one, sitting on a sofa and working on her laptop. Suddenly, an iMessage notification sounded. Chloe picked up her phone to look, and a hint of surprise flickered across her perpetually icy face. The family doctor immediately asked, "Did something happen to the matriarch?" Chloe pursed her lips and handed him the phone. The video showed the old woman lying on a small floral print bedsheet, sleeping soundly. It was only 9 p.m. and usually they were thankful if she fell asleep before 1 in the morning. The doctor was astonished. The matriarch's response to this young man is truly different. If he could stay with her, her health would definitely improve. Chloe's gaze deepened as she seemed to ponder something. The next morning, I received a message from Chloe. Our back-and-forth exchanges made her feel as if she were talking to an old friend. She suddenly asked, "Can I come visit Grandma tonight?" "Of course, you're welcome anytime." I then sent her the specific address. I was waiting outside, bored, when I suddenly heard a familiar voice. I turned to see a familiar face, Sophia. The face I remembered as always being gentle and considerate was now looking at me with a dark expression. In college, I was always alone, but Sophia, warm and cheerful, was always by my side. She was my only friend. Now, our situations were a bit awkward. I hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Can I help you?" Sophia sneered. "Evan told me about your background. Why did you hide it? I feel like such an idiot for chasing someone like you for 4 years. Was it fun for you?" It felt like a giant hand had squeezed my heart. I never thought 4 years of friendship could be shattered so easily. I took a step back, putting some distance between us. But Sophia stepped forward, demanding, "Don't you have anything to explain to me?" I let out a sarcastic laugh. "No." With that, I turned to leave. If she looked down on my origins, then there was no point in being friends. My decisive manner inexplicably irritated Sophia. Seeing me walk further away, she acted on impulse and grabbed my wrist. "You can't leave." I looked back at her. What else is there? Sophia's face was tense, anger rising within her. I was the one who had let go first, so why did it feel like I was the one being abandoned? Then I heard her mocking voice again. "You're still working here, which means you haven't found a real job yet, right? Why don't you come be my personal assistant?" I pulled my arm free and coldly refused. "I'm afraid I'm not qualified." But Sophia persisted. "You wouldn't have to do much. I have an apartment near the office. You just need to live there and take care of my daily needs. I'll pay you $50,000 a month. Is that enough?" My gaze turned icy in an instant. "You want me to be your mistress?" Sophia scoffed. "You'd definitely be good at that, right? After all, your mother is a mistress. You've been learning from her since you were a child. It's practically a family trade. I'm sure you're a professional." Hearing that, I shoved her to the ground and looked at her coldly. "That's enough." But when she got up, she wasn't angry. Instead, she smiled. "I'll give you time to think about it. Come find me anytime you change your mind." Sophia left after saying that. I let out a self-deprecating laugh. That evening, Chloe left work on time and came to the old neighborhood in the suburbs. She carried a bag of fruit and knocked on the door at the address I'd sent her. Seeing that I looked healthy, she finally took a look around. Although it was a small, 650 square foot, 2-bedroom apartment, it was very clean and cozy. However, the sound of a running shower came from the bathroom, and Chloe averted her gaze as if she'd been shocked. The family doctor, who was behind her, was about to enter when she stopped him. "Give me the equipment. You wait in the car." Chloe quickly and efficiently checked the old woman's blood pressure, blood sugar, and heart rate. Perhaps because the old woman had slept well the night before, all her readings were perfectly healthy. The old woman said proudly, "My grandson-in-law takes great care of me." Seeing was believing, and Chloe finally relaxed. She glanced towards the bathroom again before packing up the equipment. "Since you're fine, I'll be going now." The old woman was surprised. "Aren't you staying for dinner?" "My grandson-in-law is an excellent cook. It's not convenient." Chloe put the medical kit down. "Leave this here." The old woman's eyes darted around. "Take it with you. My grandson-in-law won't know how to use it, and I don't want that other doctor coming here. I want you to check on me every day." Just as Chloe was about to say something, the sound of the shower suddenly stopped. She immediately stood up, grabbed her medical bag, and hurried out the door. I'll be going then. I'll come back tomorrow. The moment the door closed, I walked out of the bathroom, fully dressed. Where's your granddaughter? She left. Said it wasn't convenient. She's just too proper and always has a sour look on her face. Son-in-law, is that why you don't like her? She can change, you know? I'm not your grandson-in-law. Yes, you are. I felt a wave of helplessness. Over the past 2 days, I had discovered that the old woman was very kind and went along with everything I said, except for this one thing, on which she was incredibly stubborn. A few days later, the old woman suddenly said she wanted to go home to get some clothes, so I messaged the granddaughter for the address. But when I opened the location, I froze. The Sterling estate? Wasn't this the Sterling family home? It was the most famous wealthy enclave in Los Angeles. I had assumed the old woman lived in one of the smaller villas, not daring to think it was the main Sterling residence. But upon arriving, I looked up at the imposing, antique-style black gates with intricate carvings and asked hesitantly, "Grandma, is this your house?" The old woman was drowsy, her gaze vacant. "Grandson-in-law, I can't remember." With no other choice, I messaged the granddaughter. She replied immediately, "Wait right there. I'm on my way." Before long, a luxury car pulled up in front of us, and Evan and Laura got out of the back seat, rushing towards us. Laura's brow was furrowed. "Ethan, it really is you. What are you doing here?" She had come to the Sterling estate with Evan today, posing as a nanny, and had seen someone loitering in front of the gate from a distance. She never expected it to be me. Evan looked at the closed gates of the estate. "Ethan, are you here to bother Miss Chloe again?" At his words, Laura exploded. "You animal, don't you know what day it is? Get lost now. If you ruin Evan's engagement, I'll be the end of you." Although I was utterly fed up with them, the old woman was here, and I didn't want to start a conflict. So I suppressed my annoyance and explained, "I was taking this lady home and got lost." Evan blurted out, "Isn't that your wife's grandmother? How could she possibly live in this neighborhood?" I retorted, "And why not?" Laura, standing beside him, started cursing at me. "Who are you trying to fool? You think your broke wife's grandmother could live here?" She turned directly to the old woman. "Old hag, tell me then, which villa do you live in?" I frowned at her words and was about to intervene, but the old woman suddenly stood up. "I remember now. I live here. Grandson-in-law, come home with me." She grabbed my hand and started pulling me towards the Sterling Estates gate. We were still 100 yards from the gate, but after just 2 steps, Evan spoke up. "Ethan, after all those excuses, you're still just using this old woman as a shield to get into the Sterling estate?" I stopped dead and stared ahead. The Sterling estate? Although a suspicion had formed when I saw the magnificent gates, I couldn't connect the polite granddaughter from iMessage with the cold, ruthless Chloe. Maybe the old woman was mistaken. Just as I was about to confirm, Laura lunged forward, reaching for the old woman. "You're not going to cause trouble at the Sterlings." I was startled and quickly shielded the old woman with one arm while grabbing Laura with the other, forcefully pushing her away. "What are you doing?" Laura stumbled back several steps. Once she regained her balance, she started screaming curses. "You ungrateful wolf, you'd hit your own mother for this old hag. I'm calling the police." I ignored her and quickly checked on the old woman. She had probably never been cursed at like that in her life, and sure enough, she was trembling with anger. Her hand clutched her chest as her body shook uncontrollably. I quickly steadied her and fumbled in her pocket for her emergency heart medication. But when I opened the bottle, it was empty. My pupils contracted. The old woman was very frail. CPR was a last resort and not ideal. Medication was the best option. I looked desperately at the gate. The Sterlings must have medicine. Even if she wasn't a Sterling, she was their neighbor. They wouldn't just let her die. I scooped up the old woman, but Evan grabbed my arm tightly. "Ethan, don't do this. The Sterlings won't let you in." He glanced at the old woman, a dark look flashing in his eyes. At that moment, I felt like I was going to explode with rage. My eyes burned with fury as I kicked him to the ground. But the next second, my leg was grabbed. Laura was sitting on the ground, shamelessly clinging to me with all her might. I was shaking with anger, but with the old woman in my arms, I couldn't break free. Just then, a black Bentley glided to a stop. Chloe got out and demanded sharply, "What are you all doing?" Evan scrambled to speak. "Miss Sterling, it's Ethan. He insisted on bringing this dying old woman to your house to cause a scene. It's my fault for not stopping him." Hearing this, Chloe's eyes landed on the woman in my arms, and her pupils constricted. She strode towards us. Her grandmother was the person closest to her, and her health had been declining for years. Chloe was clearly panicked. I didn't have time to explain and just said quickly, "The matriarch is having a heart attack. She just ran out of her medication. If she gets it in time, she'll be okay." Chloe pressed her lips together, took her grandmother from me, and rushed into the estate without a backward glance. I couldn't follow because Laura was still clinging to my leg. Evan was still suspicious about the old woman's identity, but Laura let go of me, dusted herself off and sneered, "Weren't you just using that to rush the old hag into the Sterling's house?" Just then, the estate gate opened, and Sophia walked out. Evan put on a fawning expression. Sophia, you could have just waited for me in the parking lot. Why did you come all the way to the gate? Sophia forced a gentle smile. I was worried you wouldn't find your way on your first visit. She then looked at me, her gentle expression instantly turning sinister. Ethan, are you here for me? Have you finally come to your senses? I kept a straight face and said nothing. If you'd come to your senses, you could have just called me. Who gave you permission to come to the Sterling estate? Do you think an illegitimate son like you can just walk through these gates? Sophia sneered. But if you really want to take a look inside, I suppose. Sophia, you're mistaken. Evan interrupted. Ethan was waiting for his wife's grandmother. The old woman just had a heart attack and was carried inside by Miss Chloe for emergency treatment. Sophia's eyes instantly turned red, and she gritted her teeth. What, wife? Ethan, who is that woman? I looked at her mockingly. Sophia, who my wife is has nothing to do with you. How is it none of my business? I'd like to see who dares to marry you without my permission. Evan quickly answered. I heard from Ethan's mother that she's some kind of street trash. Sophia clenched her fists. So you degrade yourself like that? Fine. An illegitimate son and a piece of trash. A perfect match. Evan continued to add fuel to the fire. Ethan must be resentful, which is why he's always bothering Miss Chloe. I let out a cold laugh. Evan, you call yourself the young master of the Anderson family, yet your mind is filled with nothing but sordid affairs. Is there anything else in there? At my words, Evan's face stiffened, and he clenched his fists. I know you're doing this to get back at Sophia and me, but Miss Chloe is already married. You shouldn't be trying to destroy someone else's marriage. Hearing this, Sophia exploded. She had been waiting for my call for the past 2 days, thinking that if I came crawling back, she might consider giving me a chance. It turned out I had already found someone else. The thought infuriated her. No wonder your wife's grandmother had a heart attack at my doorstep. You were here to see my aunt. Ethan, how can you be so shameless? She was furious, pointing at me and instructing the guards. Did you get a good look? Remember this face. Don't let him set foot in the Sterling estate ever again. Evan lowered his head to hide the triumphant smirk on his lips. When it came to the Sterling estate's gates, Sophia still had some say. However, the next moment, the Sterling family's head butler walked out from inside. His gaze swept over everyone before landing on me. Mr. Anderson, Miss Chloe invites you to come in. Evan froze. Sophia was dumbfounded. I looked up, a half smile on my face, and glanced at the guard. So, can I go in now? The guard shot a cautious look at Sophia and then opened the gate without hesitation. He knew who was really in charge at the Sterling estate. After I entered, Sophia and the others followed. Laura glared at me. Miss Chloe probably just wants you to pick up your grandmother. Once you have her, you'd better have the sense to leave quickly. Don't you dare dirty the Sterling's carpets. With that, they all entered the living room and immediately saw the Sterling matriarch sitting upright on the main sofa. The old woman glared at them. You wicked woman, who were you calling an animal? The old woman was now dressed in elegant clothes, but she still looked pale. Chloe sat coldly to her left. Laura stood frozen in place, while Evan's legs gave out, and he nearly collapsed, saved only by Sophia catching him. What's wrong with you? Evan's hands were trembling. He suddenly gave a bitter laugh. Ethan, why did you lie to me and say the Sterling matriarch was your wife's grandmother? You made us disrespect her. I instantly felt several suspicious gazes in the room turned towards me. Laura also caught on. You knew she had Alzheimer's, and you still dared to deceive her. What do you take the Sterling family for? Get on your knees and apologize right now. My eyes darkened. Were they trying to pin all the blame on me? A clever move by Evan to clear his name. Crash. The old woman threw a teacup, which hit Laura directly, splashing scalding tea all over her. Yet, Laura didn't dare to scream. You scoundrel, the matriarch roared. He is my grandson-in-law. But Laura, enduring the pain of the burn, insisted, Matriarch, he's deceiving you. I'm certain his wife is just some street trash. There's no need to argue. Let's just ask the person in question. Sophia's mother, Melissa, spoke up. Chloe, is he really your husband? I silently looked at Chloe and heard the expected answer. No, what an ungrateful, backstabbing woman. A flash of anger crossed my eyes. Evan, however, looked relieved and pleased. Laura sneered, I told you so. This was all Ethan's doing. I let out a cold laugh and was about to speak when the woman's voice sounded again. Grandma mistook him for someone else, so I asked Mr. Anderson to help take care of her. Instantly, the room fell silent. No one had expected this turn of events. After a moment, Evan lowered his head. So that's how it is. Ethan, why didn't you tell us the truth? If you had, this misunderstanding wouldn't have happened. Mr. Anderson, Chloe said, leaning back on the sofa casually, but her voice carried immense power. Is this how the Anderson family teaches its younger generation? To hide and shift blame when things go wrong. The old matriarch, prompted by Chloe's words, became furious. Do you think just because my mind is fuzzy, I can't see through your little tricks? You make a mistake, show no remorse, and then try to blame someone else. The two of you are truly shameless. The matriarch looked directly at Sophia. Call off the engagement. I do not acknowledge this great-grandson-in-law. Evan's whole body trembled. He had worked so hard for this marriage. He couldn't let it disappear just like that. He looked at Sophia, but she was staring at me in a daze, clearly still reeling from the shock of my marriage. Evan clenched his fists, lowered his head, and walked to Sophia. Sophia, it's my fault. Don't worry. Even if the engagement is cancelled, I'll still make the introduction I promised you. Sophia snapped back to reality. Evan was still going to introduce her to Drive E, who was one of the top figures in the country's renewable energy sector. She quickly said to the matriarch, "Great-grandma, Evan didn't know any better. Please forgive him. Besides, our families have already exchanged engagement gifts. It would be difficult to call it off now." The matriarch gave her a deep look. "Do as you wish. Your parents can decide on your matters." She didn't want to interfere further. But Sophia's mother, Melissa, smiled and said, "Grandma, have you forgotten the engagement gift?" Hearing this, the matriarch's eyelids drooped. "I'll have someone transfer $180,000 to Sophia." Melissa's face stiffened. "But, didn't you say before that you would give the young couple 2% of the company shares, in case they were tight on cash as newlyweds?" If there was a wealthiest person in the Sterling family, it was undoubtedly the matriarch. She came from a prominent East Coast family, had a substantial dowry, and controlled 20% of Sterling Corp's shares. Melissa had long planned to use the marriage to get a hefty sum from her. It had all been agreed upon, but the old woman had suddenly changed her mind. The matriarch looked at her with a faint, mocking smile. "I am not satisfied with this great-grandson-in-law, so I'm not giving it." Evan's face turned deathly pale. He felt utterly humiliated. The Sterling estate had many servants, and word would surely get out. Soon, all of Los Angeles would know he had been rejected by the matriarch. For the elite, face was everything, and today, the old woman had trampled his all over the ground. But the old woman couldn't care less. After dropping that bombshell, she grabbed me, took Chloe, and led us to her private courtyard. Then, making an excuse, she asked Chloe to entertain her grandson-in-law properly and hurried off with her staff. In the blink of an eye, only Chloe and I were left in the courtyard. We stood side by side in the twilight. As I was hesitating about how to start a conversation, Chloe suddenly looked at me with a hint of disdain. "Are you anemic or something?" Not to be outdone, I looked at her seriously. "Simple Sally?" Chloe's face turned livid. Her grandmother must have been coaxed into telling him even that. His intentions were clearly not pure. Grandma latching onto him might have been an accident, but was there no calculation involved? This man's kindness in taking her in could very well be because Grandma had inadvertently revealed her identity. I retorted, but didn't forget the important matter at hand. "I remember you said in your message you'd do me a favor. Can you come with me to City Hall to check our marital status?" Chloe's face was dark as she snapped impatiently, "Fine, let's go. But if this isn't real, I expect you to stop using my grandmother to bother me." The old woman's head popped out of a window. "You brat, are you bullying my grandson-in-law?" Chloe's expression immediately stiffened. "No, dinner was simple, for dishes and a soup, just right for the three of us." But the old woman had little appetite and put down her chopsticks after a few bites. "Grandson-in-law, I'm tired. Let's go home. You should rest here tonight instead of moving around." This courtyard was like a small, private nursing home, fully equipped with all sorts of medical equipment. But the old woman grabbed my hand nervously. "Then can you stay here and keep me company?" I frowned and glanced at Chloe. To be honest, I was also worried about the old woman, but this woman was so disdainful of me, suspecting I was using her grandmother to get close to her, that she would surely refuse. Chloe was silent for a moment. "You can." She then gave me a meaningful look, making it clear she was only agreeing for her grandmother's sake and that I shouldn't get any ideas. After dinner, I took the old woman back to her room to rest. She must have been truly exhausted today, having had another health scare, and she drifted off into a drowsy sleep almost as soon as she lay down. She slept very restlessly, so I had no choice but to sit by her bed and stay with her. Outside the window, Chloe's expression was grave. "What's going on with Grandma?" The family doctor, who had also studied psychology, sighed. "Although I don't know why the matriarch is so attached to this young man, I have a guess as to why she's so anxious and afraid he'll leave." The doctor then glanced at Chloe. "The matriarch probably feels she won't make it through the year. She's afraid that when she's gone, you'll have no one to tie you down. This grandson-in-law is the only person she can leave behind to keep you company." Chloe froze, an irrepressible emotion churning in her dark eyes before it finally settled back into calm. She stood in the moonlight, looking as if she might merge completely with the darkness behind her. After a long while, she suddenly turned and strode towards the main house. Evan had a difficult dinner. Because he had just lost out on 2% of the company's shares, Sophia's mother, Melissa, was very displeased and kept making barbed comments at him. "Isn't Ethan your family's illegitimate son? How come he can please the old matriarch, but you can't?" Evan could only lower his head and apologize. "Aunt Melissa, I'm not as good with words as Ethan is. Melissa sneered. I don't care what method you use. You must get that 2% of shares back for me, or you can forget about marrying into the Sterling family. Evan was miserable but couldn't say a word. After finally finishing the meal, he was ready to leave, but before he could, Chloe returned. The moment she entered, she brought an immense pressure with her. Her expression darkened further as she glanced at the leftover food on the table. Her grandmother had barely eaten anything tonight, yet they were all here enjoying a feast. Melissa saw her face and didn't dare to speak. It was Sophia's father, Richard Sterling, who frowned and asked, Chloe, what are you doing here? Chloe ignored her nominal older brother and looked at Evan. Since the engagement isn't off, he's considered part of the Sterling family now, correct? And as a member of the Sterling family, he must abide by its rules. Today, he disrespected an elder. His punishment is to kneel in the ancestral hall for one night. Without waiting for a response, Chloe gestured behind her. 2 bodyguards stepped up to Evan. Mr. Anderson, if you please. Evan looked pleadingly at Sophia, but she didn't dare to defy the family's true authority. He took a deep breath and had no choice but to follow the bodyguards. Just before he left, he heard Sophia ask, Aunt Chloe, what about Ethan? Has he left? This was followed by Chloe's warning reply. He is my guest. He's staying at the estate tonight. Evan followed the bodyguards to the ancestral hall. Miss Sterling said that since you are not yet married, you cannot enter the Sterling ancestral hall. You will kneel outside. The ground outside was paved with hard brick. Evan wanted to protest, but the 2 bodyguards stared at him like stone sentinels, their silent presence more intimidating than any words. The next day when I woke up, I was in a bed with a small pink blanket draped over me, which clashed with the decor of the old woman's room. I didn't think much of it, got up, washed my face, and had breakfast with the old woman and Chloe. There was a plate of fried sweet pastries on the table, and the old woman immediately picked one up. Chloe frowned. Grandma, your blood sugar is high. You shouldn't eat something so oily and sugary. As she was thinking of how to stop her, she heard my calm voice. Grandma, those pastries aren't good for you. Then, the greedy and stubborn old woman placed the pastry in my bowl. She smiled sweetly. Grandson-in-law, I got this for you. Chloe gave me a scrutinizing look, not understanding why her grandmother listened to me so readily. I ate the pastry without hesitation and then looked at Chloe. We're going to City Hall later. You'll need your ID and household register. The old woman asked curiously, why are you going to City Hall? Did you lose your marriage certificate? Unexpectedly, the old woman replied, it's not lost. She hurried into her bedroom and quickly returned with 2 red marriage certificates, handing one to me and one to Chloe. I stared at the certificate in my hand, dumbfounded. I suddenly realized that the old woman had called me grandson-in-law the very first time she saw me. She had known all along that we were married. Feeling like I was onto a clue, I immediately asked, Grandma, how do you have these certificates? The old woman looked startled, her eyes growing hazy. I don't remember. Then how did Miss Sterling and I get married? The old woman just kept shaking her head. I don't remember. I grew anxious. Grandma, please try to think. That's enough. Chloe scoffed, stepping between me and her grandmother. She looked at me coldly. Mr. Anderson, is this certificate real? What's next? Are you going to say we don't need to go to City Hall anymore? So this was your goal. First, you used the pretense of going to City Hall to legitimize your harassment. Then you trick Grandma into producing this fake certificate to make her believe it's real. I sensed a faint killing intent in her tone and found it baffling. We don't have to go today. After all, a divorce isn't as simple as one trip to City Hall. We've been legally married for 2 years, which involves a lot of asset division issues. We need to sign a divorce agreement first. No! After saying that, Chloe stared at me intently. Seeing my slight surprise, I just sighed and said, as you wish. Was his acting that good? Or was the certificate actually real? Suddenly, Chloe wasn't so sure. She decisively picked up the marriage certificate and headed out. I'll wait for you in the parking lot. I gave the old woman a reassuring smile. As soon as we reached the parking lot, we saw Laura supporting a pale-faced Evan. Seeing me, she rushed over, full of self-righteousness. You have to help your brother. Ethan, you're an illegitimate son, but the Anderson family overlooked your origins and raised you. Even if you don't consider merit, you should at least repay them for their effort. I had been hearing this brainwashing for 20 years, and now it just sounded ridiculous. Seeing my silence, Laura pressed on. Now that you're grown up, you finally have a chance to repay the family. Ethan, doesn't the Sterling matriarch listen to you? Go ask her to give that 2% of shares back to your brother. After hearing her out, I suddenly laughed. I'm just a lowly illegitimate son. Why would the Sterling matriarch possibly listen to me? Laura was stunned and wanted to say more, but I had already strode past her and gotten into Chloe's car. The car quickly arrived at City Hall. Just as we parked, Mark rushed up, out of breath. Boss, the driver said you drove off by yourself. I got scared and tracked your location. Did something happen? Chloe was a woman of few words. What are you doing here? Don't tell me Ethan's pestering has actually gotten to you? Don't worry, I told you he won't be able to see you again. If he does, I'll eat my own shoe on a live stream. I leaned back in the rear seat and said lazily, "What's your stream handle?" Mark froze, and so, the three of us entered the main office. Mark was the first to ask, "Hello, I'd like to know, can someone get a marriage certificate without being present in person?" "Absolutely not," the clerk replied. Mark looked at me mockingly. "Did you hear that? You even prepared a fake certificate. I'm calling the police right now to report you for forgery and harassment." But Chloe handed the certificate to the clerk. "Could you please check if this marriage certificate is authentic?" After checking the system, the clerk responded, "This certificate is real. How is that possible? Did you enter the information incorrectly?" Mark exclaimed, "What are you talking about? Marriage is a serious matter. Both parties who come to register must have their identities carefully verified and sign a declaration." I quickly spoke up. "Can we see our declaration forms?" Chloe also nodded. "Please get the forms for us." The clerk stood up with a sigh. "You two are certainly in sync for a married couple. All right, I'll go get them for you." A short while later, 2 sets of registration documents were placed before us. I glanced at the handwriting on mine. It was definitely my own. Mark leaned in and cried out, "Boss, that's really your signature." Chloe fell silent. I looked at the clerk. "Hello, could we see the security footage from the day we registered?" "I'm sorry, we only keep footage for 6 months." The clerk repeatedly assured us that the procedure was flawless and that both parties had to be present to get a certificate. The 3 of us walked out of City Hall. Mark looked lost. "Boss, what do we do now?" Chloe's eyes darkened. I raised an eyebrow. "Get a divorce," we both said in unison. Mark was stunned, then asked, "So, you're getting divorced now? Do you need to discuss the terms?" "I'll have my lawyer contact you." "Talk to my lawyer." For the 3rd time, Chloe and I spoke at the same time. I chuckled and said, "How about this? We each have our lawyers draft an agreement, we'll review them, and if there are any issues, we'll let the lawyers negotiate." Mark sneered. "Someone like you can afford a lawyer?" But Chloe nodded in agreement. I ignored Mark, took out my phone, and said, "Miss Sterling, let's exchange numbers on iMessage to make future contact easier." Chloe opened her QR code with a meaningful look. I scanned it and a chat window popped up. The contact name was glaringly obvious, Silly Granddaughter. Her face instantly darkened. I was also embarrassed. I had completely forgotten we were already contacts. Facing her sour expression, I coughed and said, "I just picked a random nickname at the time." I then casually changed the name to Simple Sally, said, "See you later," and hailed a cab. In the car, I called Jessica. "Find me the best divorce lawyer. I absolutely cannot let her take a single penny from me." "Boss, what on earth happened with your marriage? Don't tell me you both have amnesia?" I sighed. "There's one person who definitely knows what happened. The Sterling matriarch?" I frowned. "We need to speed up the clinical trial for the Alzheimer's drug. We're running out of time." When I got home, I found the old woman waiting at my door with a suitcase. "Grandson-in-law, you're back. I brought lots of clothes." I paused for a moment, then broke into a helpless smile. That day, the most prestigious law firm in Los Angeles received 2 anonymous requests. The demands from both parties were identical. The other party was not to get a single cent. A junior associate complained, "I've never seen such a heartless couple," but the senior partner just chuckled. "We get paid twice for one contract. Send it to the clients." Soon after, Chloe received my divorce agreement at her office. Just as she opened it, Mark walked in. "Boss, the investigation results are in. Ethan only discovered you were married a few days ago when he went to register his own marriage. For several years after he left the Anderson family, much of his information is untraceable, which is very strange." Chloe was thoughtful. "So, you think he's involved in this?" "His motive is still unknown. Also, Drive E is elusive. We haven't been able to contact him yet." Chloe said nothing. She had no idea that I was the one developing that Alzheimer's drug. That evening, Chloe met me downstairs and handed me an agreement. "I have no objections. Let's sign." She thought I would refuse, but I signed without hesitation. "Tomorrow? In such a hurry? Rushing to your death?" I grumbled internally. My company was waiting to go public. "See you at City Hall tomorrow morning." Just as I said that, the Sterling matriarch came downstairs. Her face was pale, her voice trembling. "You're getting a divorce?" The words had barely left her mouth when her eyes closed and she collapsed. Outside the hospital room, the doctor gave a stern warning. "The matriarch cannot handle any more stress. You absolutely must not upset her again." Chloe sat on the bench, her hands trembling uncontrollably. When the old woman woke up, she looked at me, her voice hoarse. "Grandson-in-law, I dreamed that you and that brat were getting a divorce. That's not true, is it?" I said nothing, but Chloe, beside me, spoke up. "It's not true. So you're not getting divorced? Give me your household register and the marriage certificates." "Okay." Chloe agreed to everything. The old woman then looked at me. "Grandson-in-law, is what the brat said true?" Remembering the doctor's warning, I paused for a moment. "It's true. That night, I was sitting on the sofa, working on some English research materials. A message from Simple Sally popped up on iMessage. We'll get the divorce after Grandma's condition stabilizes. I replied, okay. The agreement was already signed anyway. We were practically strangers. Chloe sent another message. Do you have any other demands? Just a quick divorce as soon as Grandma is better. The old woman looked at me, then at her, and suddenly said, you brat, I want to arrange a job for my grandson-in-law at Sterling Corporation. Chloe paused for a second, then agreed. Okay. The old woman was excited. You'll go to work with the brat tomorrow. I agreed. Sterling Corp's archives were extensive, which would be convenient for my research. Afterwards, Chloe left with Mark. In the hallway, Mark complained, boss, he's definitely trying to infiltrate the company. Why did you agree? If I don't keep him under my nose, how will he show his true colors? Chloe said coldly. In the hospital room, the old woman beckoned me over. Grandson-in-law, I'll let you in on a little secret. If that brat bullies you, you fight back. Don't be fooled by her tough, unapproachable act. The truth is, she's afraid of cats. I was taken aback. I remembered a girl I knew as a child who also seemed to be afraid of cats. Son-in-law, do you prefer cats or dogs? I suddenly realized that I used to like cats, but because that girl didn't, I stopped liking them too. I soon understood why the old woman had asked that question. The next day, on the top floor of Sterling Corp, an adorable Shiba Inu was wagging its tail and circling my feet. Mark was speechless. Why is the job the matriarch arranged for Mr. Anderson to take care of this puppy? Chloe also didn't understand. My job was to pet a dog? It was utterly absurd. She ordered, take them to the Renewable Energy R&D department, Team 1, for onboarding. This was what she had planned all along. The R&D department was crucial to the company's future. Placing me there was her way of seeing what I was really up to. I didn't mind. I picked up the puppy and followed Mark. Does it have a name? The matriarch said you should name it. I glanced at Chloe's sour face. Then let's call him Kitty. The Renewable Energy R&D department was on the 38th floor. In the elevator, Mark said, Mr. Anderson, most of the employees in Sterling Corp's R&D department have PhDs, and the minimum is a master's from a top university. You're the first one with only a bachelor's degree. Learning from the seniors here will be very beneficial for your future. The boss specially arranged this for you. Of course, you don't need to be grateful. It's your reward for keeping the matriarch happy. My mouth twitched. That really wasn't necessary. By the way, the boss doesn't want your relationship to be public, to avoid any drama when you eventually divorce. I gave him a look. Funnily enough, I had the same concern. Mark was dumbfounded. Was this man actually looking down on the boss? The day was easy. No one gave me any work, so I was free to do as I pleased, playing with the puppy in the office. After he fell asleep, I got up, closed the door, and headed straight for the archives on the 60th floor. Only by creating an effective drug for Alzheimer's could the old woman's memory improve, allowing her to recall the past and help me understand how this bizarre marriage came to be. The books here covered cutting-edge knowledge from various fields, some of which were research materials unavailable to the public. I felt a thrill of excitement. On the top floor, Chloe received a text from the Sterling matriarch. Her grandmother's iMessage name had been changed to Grandma Who Can't Be Agitated. You brat, you need to have lunch with my grandson-in-law. Remember to send me a picture of you two eating together intimately. Chloe sighed helplessly and pressed the call button. Mark, prepare 2 lunches and bring them up. She sent me a message, but I didn't reply. When I arrived on the 60th floor, I was searching through the bookshelves when I quickly spotted Sophia staring at me. I was so engrossed in looking for a book that I backed into someone. Sorry, I said, turning around, only to see Sophia staring at me with a complicated expression. Ethan, all this effort to please great-grandma. It's not just to get close to my aunt, is it? My expression instantly turned cold. None of your business. My aunt hasn't been interested in any man for years. Don't think you can win her over just because of your face. She's not that shallow. Didn't she just give you some meaningless job to get rid of you? I scoffed. So you're saying you chased me for so long back then because you're shallow? Sophia's eyes turned red. I know you hate me for choosing Evan, but I had no choice. Marriages between powerful families involve many considerations. My mother was even willing to let me be with a commoner, but your status, no matter what, I could never marry an illegitimate son. How would I face everyone in the Sterling family? I'd become the laughingstock of Los Angeles. I looked away. Thank you for the favor of not marrying me. I was about to leave, but Sophia blocked my path. I can arrange for you to join my team. I'll have someone skilled train you. I know you're ambitious, and you're so smart, you'll definitely learn quickly. Hearing this, I cut her off. What's the condition? Divorce her and be with me. Sophia couldn't stand the thought of another woman sharing me. The mere idea drove her mad. I replied coldly, you're not worthy. Why? Do you love that trashy wife of yours that much? Believe it or not, I could give her some money or have someone intimidate her, and she would leave you in a heartbeat. How can she possibly compare to me? At her words, I gave Sophia a cold, dismissive look. I didn't want to hurt your pride, but since you insist on asking, I'll tell you. My wife is prettier than you, and she has a better body. After saying that, I turned to leave, only to see Chloe standing around the corner. I fell silent, and so did she. Behind me, Sophia's eyes darkened as she picked up her phone and called Evan. Aren't you meeting Drive E for dinner tomorrow afternoon? Take me with you. Meanwhile, Chloe used the excuse of having lunch with me to take me to the top floor. Entering her office, she pointed to a side table. You eat first. I felt a little guilty. From her expression, she probably hadn't heard what I said, right? As I was thinking, I heard the click of a phone camera. Chloe calmly took a picture, sent it to her grandmother, and then walked over. I knew why she was taking the photo, so I didn't ask, just looked at the table and made small talk. Your lunch looks very lavish, Miss Sterling. The woman sat down across from me and elegantly picked up her chopsticks. Well, one needs proper nutrition to maintain a good figure. I froze, my face flushing as my gaze swept over her fair skin. Awkwardly, I packed up a portion of the food. Miss Sterling, I just remembered I haven't fed Kitty yet. I'll be going now. Thanks for lunch. My mood lifted, and I left with the lunchbox in hand. After work, Chloe called her grandmother. Where are you? I'm at the hospital. I had some chest pain again this afternoon, so I think I'll stay a few more days. You brat, are you coming to stay with me tonight? It's fine if you don't, just leave me here all alone and miserable. I'm on my way. That's more like it. Oh, and I already told my grandson-in-law. He's coming to stay with me too. You two should come together. Chloe rubbed her temples. She understood her grandmother's little scheme. She sent me a message. I'll pick you up after work and take you to the hospital. I replied quickly. No need. I'm already in a cab on my way. Although she wanted to keep her distance, my deliberate avoidance inexplicably annoyed her even more. I entered the hospital wing carrying the puppy. Not far away, Eleanor was just finishing a checkup, with Evan supporting her by the arm. Is that Ethan? What's he doing at the hospital? Is he sick? Eleanor asked hesitantly. Evan was furious inside. The Sterling matriarch wouldn't let anyone visit, yet she insisted on having Ethan stay with her. His eyes flickered. He's probably visiting the Sterling matriarch. Ethan is so filial. The maid, Nancy, frowned. Filial? I've never seen him come to visit you, ma'am, and you're still defending him. That young Master Ethan is an ungrateful wolf. He's probably forgotten all about you. Evan added, I heard Miss Sterling got him a job at Sterling Corp, so he's probably just repaying the matriarch. Nancy sneered. You raised him, ma'am. The debt of being raised is greater than anything, yet we don't see him repaying you. All right, that's enough. Eleanor stopped them. Evan sighed dramatically. Mom has a good heart, but some people repay a drop of kindness with a gushing spring, like Drive E. Mom only sponsored him with a little money, but look how much he's helped our family over the years. 3 years ago, when the company was on the verge of bankruptcy, Drive E gave us a technology patent that saved us. Nancy nodded. When you put it like that, Drive E is so much better than Ethan. I'd also like to know what kind of person Drive E is. Mom, can you take me with you tomorrow? Eleanor smiled and patted his head. I'll take you. I happened to see the scene from the sofa in the VIP room. My eyes followed Eleanor. Her face had an unhealthy pallor. Evan was whispering something to her, and she nodded resignedly. The two of them looked very close. I reluctantly pulled my gaze away only after their car had left. When I turned around, the old woman was standing right behind me. Son-in-law, who was that? She looked so familiar. My expression softened, and just as I was about to speak, her eyes lit up. I remember. She's your mother. You two look so much alike. I paused. In truth, besides our facial structure, Eleanor and I didn't share many features. The only similarity was a certain cool, refined temperament. After leaving the Anderson family, I had subconsciously emulated her way of handling things, and I had picked up some of her aura. I looked at the old woman. Grandma, she's not my mother. But the old woman was certain. Yes, she is. Grandson-in-law, how can you not acknowledge your own mother? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thankfully, Chloe appeared at the door with dinner. The dinner Chloe prepared was lavish, and she had also brought fruit for 3. The moment the old woman saw it, she frowned. My grandson-in-law can't eat mangoes. He's allergic. My heart skipped a beat, and I looked at her in astonishment. Grandma, how did you know that? I used to be allergic, but I had undergone desensitization therapy 2 years ago. I had never mentioned this to her. The old woman smiled. You told me before. You said that whenever you ate mangoes, your face would break out in little red bumps. My expression turned serious. When was before? The old woman looked confused again. I think, you told me before you got married. My mind was in turmoil. I was certain I didn't know her before the marriage, and I hadn't lost my memory. I pressed her urgently. What else do you remember? For example, how did Miss Sterling and I get our certificate? The old woman shook her head, saying she couldn't remember. I felt Chloe's scrutinizing gaze on me, her expression cold. I knew she must be thinking I was up to something again. I couldn't clear my name even if I tried. I picked up the Shiba Inu. Grandma, you two eat first. I'm going to walk the dog. I hid at the end of the hallway, quietly watching the room. Before long, Chloe came out. Is there something you wanted to say, Mr. Anderson? I thought you might want an explanation. And is there something you'd like to explain, Mr. Anderson? I answered seriously, I really don't know what Grandma was talking about, regarding things before the marriage. The old woman couldn't have made up such a personal detail. I expected her to question me, but she just responded calmly, I was stunned. You believe me, Miss Sterling? Chloe took a step closer, her tone icy. Mr. Anderson, I don't care what your motives are. If you can keep my grandmother happy, I can guarantee your safety. I understood. She didn't care about the truth. As long as her grandmother was happy, she would even turn a blind eye to any schemes I might have. She added with intimidating force. But if you hurt my grandmother, I will make sure you can never survive in Los Angeles. I sneered. Haven't you already done that, Miss Sterling? Chloe frowned and was about to speak when Professor Wallace's voice suddenly cut in. Ethan, Professor Wallace walked over, his voice hoarse. I was just about to call you. Did you find a job? Did you clear up the misunderstanding with Miss Sterling? That Miss Sterling is really something else, holding such a grudge. Revoking your grad school recommendation was one thing, but to also threaten to make you disappear from Los Angeles. Chloe, standing beside me, looked completely bewildered. I, however, shot her a half smile. Don't worry, Professor. It's all been resolved. It was a misunderstanding. Miss Sterling is actually quite nice. Not only did she arrange a job for me, but she's also promised to protect me. Chloe's face darkened. Professor Wallace breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Chloe and asked instinctively, Is this your trashy wife? Chloe's face turned completely black. My smile only widened. I guess so. Professor Wallace then said to Chloe in a paternal tone, You're a pretty young lady. You should try to find a decent job. At that moment, in the Anderson family dining room, Robert was asking a listless Eleanor with concern, Eleanor, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Evan chimed in, Dad, we ran into Ethan at the hospital today. Mom is probably a little worried about him. Why worry about him? Evan sighed. He must hate me now. I'm worried he'll say something to the Sterling matriarch and Miss Chloe will take it out on me. Robert sneered. He's the one who offended Miss Sterling. What does that have to do with you? Just as he was speaking, Robert's phone rang. It was Chloe's special assistant, Mark. Mr. Mark, what a surprise to hear from you. Does Miss Sterling have any instructions? The voice on the other end was exceptionally cold. The boss asked me to inquire when Mr. Evan Anderson said he would make Mr. Ethan Anderson disappear from Los Angeles. The boss herself seems to be unaware of this. Robert's face froze, and he looked at Evan in disbelief. Mark's final words were, The Anderson family really needs to teach its younger generation some manners. Then he hung up. Evan lowered his head. I saw Ethan bothering Miss Sterling and was afraid he would affect my engagement with Sophia. It wasn't intentional. Evan explained with a pale face. After all, Ethan is also your son. I was afraid you wouldn't have the heart to punish him. Foolish. Robert changed the subject. How many times have I told you? In my heart, I only have one son, and that's you. What is Ethan? How can he compare to you? Eleanor disagreed. Robert, Ethan is your son after all. Robert immediately turned to her. Eleanor, I wronged you when Laura tricked me back then. I will not acknowledge her son. In my heart, there is only you and our son. Laura, standing nearby in her nanny's uniform, heard this and clenched her fists in resentment. She looked at Robert with bitter eyes. This was the man she deeply loved, her childhood friend from next door. But this man's heart and eyes were only for Eleanor. When Laura got pregnant, she went to him with the pregnancy test, offering to be his mistress, but he ruthlessly threw her out, saying he would not betray his wife. With no other options, Laura went to Eleanor, threatening to kill herself just to be allowed to stay at the Anderson estate. For all these years, Robert had barely spoken to her and treated Ethan as if he were invisible. Fortunately, she had switched the two children. Laura lowered her head, suppressing the smile in her eyes. Robert would never know that the son he and Eleanor had cherished and doted on for so many years, Evan, was actually hers. As for Ethan, he deserved to be ignored and suppressed. But Eleanor stubbornly shook her head. Robert, Evan was wrong, and that's that. The family should apologize to Ethan. Robert frowned. Apologize? My son apologized to Laura's son. Laura also chimed in hastily. No, that's not necessary. The Anderson family did him a great favor by raising him. It's only natural to discipline him. Eleanor looked at them, sighed softly, but didn't argue further. When Evan was taking her back to her room, Eleanor spoke again. If you have time tomorrow, I'll take you to formally apologize to Ethan. Evan's face stiffened. Didn't you want to bring Sophia to meet Drive-E? Let's do it all tomorrow. Evan's eyes instantly lit up, and he took her arm. Okay, Mom, you're the best to me. After he left, Eleanor looked at her old maid, Nancy. Nancy, my health has been poor these years, and I haven't disciplined Evan well. I've been derelict in my duty. Ma'am, you're overthinking it. Young Master Evan is filial and considerate. Minor flaws can be corrected later. Eleanor gave a bitter smile. Ethan never lies. She began to cough violently and walked towards the bed with Nancy's support. The secret was still suffocating her. The next day, I felt a little nervous from the moment I woke up. It had been 10 years since I had properly met with Eleanor, and I didn't know if she would be happy or angry to see me. At noon, I went home to change my clothes. The old woman had Chloe take her home. As they left the hospital room and went downstairs, they saw Mark approaching. Chloe nodded at him, and Mark handed me a piece of paper. "Mr. Anderson, you might want to look at this." It was a list of renowned professors in the renewable energy field from top universities across the country. I looked at Mark, confused. These are all more famous professors than Professor Wallace. You can choose one to continue your graduate studies with. This is the boss's compensation for your revoked recommendation. Mr. Anderson, meeting our boss has turned out to be a blessing in disguise for you. My mouth twitched. No thanks. Then, do you want to be Dr. E's graduate student? Mark frowned. That's a bit difficult. Drive E is in high demand right now, and a genius professor like him only accepts genius students. I'm afraid you won't make the cut. Maybe you shouldn't aim so high. You can always try to get your PhD with him after you finish your master's. I gave him a look as if he were an idiot, then said directly to Chloe, "Miss Sterling, you don't need to give me a ride. I'll take a cab myself." Chloe stared in the direction I was leaving and suddenly said to Mark, "Then help him contact Drive E." What? Mark was dumbfounded. At the entrance of a private restaurant, Eleanor arrived early with Evan and Sophia. Sophia pushed open the door to their private room, and the first thing she saw was the upright back of a man pouring tea. "Hello, Drive E. I'm Sophia Sterling from Sterling Corporation. It's a pleasure to meet you." The man turned around, a playful look on his face. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "I should be the one asking you that," I said in a lazy tone. Sophia's face hardened. "Don't worry, I'm not here for you this time. Where is Drive E? Where is he?" I said nothing. Eleanor walked in with Evan. Seeing me, her eyes welled up with tears. "You're Ethan." I felt a stir in my heart. "Ma'am, have you been well?" "I'm fine. And you, Ethan? I heard from your father that you got married." Eleanor held my hand, sighing with emotion. A dark glint flashed in Evan's eyes. "Ethan, we would have invited you to join us, but since you're working, it's probably not convenient, right? We'll give you a bigger tip later to help with your expenses." "That's enough out of you," Eleanor scolded him, then quickly turned to me. "Ethan, we're meeting with Drive E today. Since you're also in the renewable energy field, you should meet him. It will be good for your future." Afraid I would steal his opportunity, Evan picked up a scalding cup of tea and walked over to me. "Ethan, my mom told me to apologize to you yesterday. I'll use this tea as a substitute for wine and toast you." As he spoke, his fingers loosened, and the tea was about to spill all over me. I sidestepped and bumped him, causing the cup to fly back onto Evan, who yelped in pain from the hot liquid. "Ethan, I know you hate me, but how could you do that?" he cried out pitifully. I lowered my eyes, feigning innocence. "Sorry, I didn't see you." Sophia was furious. "Ethan, is this how you do your job as a waiter? You've injured a customer. Get your manager here right now. I want to file a complaint." Eleanor defended me. "All right, we're all family here. Mom, Sophia is angry. Let's just have Ethan leave for now to avoid any more conflict." Eleanor looked at me apologetically. "Ethan, come home more often when you have time. Next time there's a chance, I'll take you to meet Drive E." Evan quickly changed the subject. "Mom, why isn't Drive E here yet?" I said with a cryptic smile. "He's already here." The three of them in the room all turned to look at me. Just as Eleanor was about to ask what I meant, she started coughing violently and fainted, slumping onto the table. "Ma'am!" I instinctively reached out to help her but was forcefully shoved aside by Evan. "Get away! What did you do to my mom?" "Mom, wake up!" The ambulance arrived quickly. As I was about to get in, Sophia grabbed me. "You illegitimate son, stay away from Mrs. Anderson. If you've upset her to the point of collapse, I'll never forgive you." I hailed a cab and followed them to the hospital. The hallways were crowded, and there were no available beds. Chloe saw this from an upper floor and instructed Mark, "Arrange a room for Mr. Anderson's mother." The front desk received a call and immediately announced, "A VIP room has just become available." Evan was ecstatic. "Sophia, you're amazing." Sophia tacitly accepted the credit. The group moved into the room, and I followed closely, but Evan blocked me at the door. "Ethan, my mom needs to rest. Don't disturb her." With a slam, the door was shut in my face. I stood there, my heart burning with anxiety, but I had no right to enter. I could only sit down on a nearby bench. Before long, the sound of hurried footsteps approached, and Robert Anderson rushed into the room with a worried expression. After confirming that Eleanor was not in serious danger, he pulled Evan out of the room. Robert frowned and asked, "What happened? Why did she suddenly faint?" Evan looked at me sitting on the bench. It was Ethan. He insisted on meeting Drive E and got into an argument with Sophia, which upset Mom. Robert's gaze immediately turned furious as he looked at me. "You disgrace." Without another word, he swung his arm, aiming to strike me. I didn't move, my mind filled with the image of Eleanor's pale face. Maybe, as Evan said, my very existence was a misfortune for her. The expected pain never came. I opened my eyes to see a cool, elegant figure standing in front of me. Chloe was there, as if she were shielding me from the world. Robert stammered in a panic. "Miss Sterling, what are you?" "I shouldn't interfere with how you discipline your son, Mr. Anderson." Chloe's voice was low and pleasant. "But Grandma is very fond of him right now. She would be sad if she saw his face was injured." Robert immediately backed down. "It was my oversight." Eleanor's cough came from the room, and Robert and Evan quickly went inside. I hesitated at the door for a long time, listening to her weak voice from within. "I'm fine, don't worry. I haven't slept well in so long. When I fainted just now, I actually slept very comfortably." My tense nerves finally relaxed. Chloe asked, "Aren't you going in?" "Not right now. It would just start another war of words and disturb Mrs. Anderson's rest," I said softly. Just as I turned, the old woman approached, supported by the butler. "I heard my grandson-in-law's mother was hospitalized, so I came to see." I took her arm. "Grandma, Mrs. Anderson is not my mother. Did I get it wrong?" The old woman took out her phone, found a photo, and showed it to me. "Grandson-in-law, you sent this to me before. You said it was you and your mother. Is the person in the hospital room not the person in this photo?" I froze instantly. In the photo, Eleanor and I were sitting by the sea, smiling brightly, looking just like a mother and son. But I hadn't seen her since I left the Anderson family. How could we have a photo together? I zoomed in on the photo and found the clue. It was a poorly photoshopped image. "When did I send this to you?" The old woman shook her head. "I don't remember." "Then how did I send it to you? Email or text?" She continued to shake her head. "I can't remember." I felt helpless, but the old woman was insistent. "Grandson-in-law, she is your mother. You can't just ignore your mother." After seeing the old woman off, Chloe stood in the hallway. Mark quickly approached to report. "Boss, I found out. Mr. Anderson was working at that private restaurant when he ran into the Anderson family." Chloe's voice was cool. "Is the salary Sterling Corp pays him so low? Why else would he be working a side job?" "It's not low at all. The matriarch arranged it for him. Maybe his supervisor gave him a difficult task, and he's worried about being fired." But Chloe felt it wasn't that simple. What were the Andersons doing at the restaurant? They were supposed to meet Drive E. Miss Sophia was there for that reason too, but Drive E never showed up. A faint light flickered in Chloe's deep eyes as an absurd idea began to form. In the hospital room, Eleanor was feeling much better after some rest. Evan told Sophia to go home first. Evan looked awkward. Sophia was only staying to wait for Drive E. Eleanor realized this and handed her phone to Evan. "We stood him up today. You should explain it to Drive E." After Eleanor rescheduled the meeting, Evan walked Sophia out. In the hallway, Evan said, "Don't worry, Sophia. There won't be any problems with Drive E. There are a few tough nuts in the Sterling RD department who don't respect me. If I can get Drive E on board, I'll have made a real contribution and secured my position. So Drive E is very important to me. You have to convince him." The two of them got into the elevator. I stepped out from a corner and pushed open the door to the hospital room. Robert's face immediately darkened. "What are you doing here again? Get out." "Is that Ethan?" "Let him in quickly," Eleanor's gentle voice called out. Robert warned me, "Don't you dare upset her again. I already told you it wasn't because of Ethan today." "I just haven't been sleeping well," Eleanor said chidingly, taking my hand. "Child, you must have been so scared today, weren't you?" Her palm was warm. I smiled and said I wasn't. "You should come home more often in the future. And about your wife, your mother said she's some kind of delinquent, but I don't believe it. You've always had good judgment and a strong mind, Ethan. Anyone you choose must have their good qualities. Bring her to see me someday." My nose tingled. "Okay." She started coughing violently again. I took out a small plastic bottle. "I had someone get this cough medicine for me. Take one when you can't sleep at night." Eleanor nodded in agreement. As I left the room, I heard Robert say disdainfully from inside, "How could you be bought over by a bottle of medicine from some unknown clinic?" He casually tossed the bottle into the trash. Late that night, Eleanor was woken up by her cough again, her anxiety so severe that suicidal thoughts began to surface. As if possessed, she retrieved the medicine bottle from the trash and took one pill. A cool sensation instantly soothed her itchy throat, and she drifted off into a hazy sleep. The next morning at 10, Robert woke Eleanor up. She had slept straight through until morning. "Ma'am, the sleeping pills the doctor gave you yesterday really worked. You slept for a full 10 hours. Nancy was so excited her eyes were red. "What sleeping pills?" Eleanor was confused. Nancy looked at Evan. "Miss Sophia got them for you. She found some strong sleeping pills and added them to your medicine. I can't believe they actually worked." Eleanor paused. She felt her throat was much clearer, and her gaze fell on the unlabeled plastic bottle by her pillow. Robert lavished praise on his future daughter-in-law. "This daughter-in-law is truly wonderful. I heard the hospital was completely full, and it was Sophia who pulled a lot of strings to get this room. We really owe her for this. Evan pressed his advantage. Mom, Sophia is so filial to you, you should help her too. The family wants her to manage the RD department, but the researchers there don't respect her. If we could invite Drive E to be an external technical consultant, Sophia would be able to secure her position. Eleanor hesitated for a moment before saying, all right, I'll ask Drive E, but if he doesn't agree, we'll drop it. Evan's face lit up with a smile. In his mind, Drive E had never refused a request from Eleanor. Eleanor took out her phone, found Dr. E's profile, chose her words carefully, and sent a message. Ethan, are you free? I'd like to ask for your help with something. I had just returned from a walk with the old woman when I received the message. I frowned. What could Eleanor want from me? Was there a problem with the medicine from yesterday? The drug was still in the clinical trial phase. I had only given it to her early because I could see how seriously ill she was. I grew anxious, asked the nurse to take the old woman back to her room, and hurried towards Eleanor's. Soon, I arrived at her room and found both Sophia and Laura there. Their cheerful laughter stopped the moment I walked in. Feeling like an intruder and seeing that Eleanor was fine, I lowered my eyes and prepared to leave. But Laura spoke up. Well, if it isn't Mr. Ethan, what's wrong? Now that you've latched onto the sterling matriarch, are the rest of us beneath you? I turned to leave, but she grabbed me. I hear you're completely focused on sucking up to the sterling matriarch now, waiting on her hand and foot. You think she'll treat you like a real grandson? Keep dreaming. You're just a toy to her. Evan quickly interjected. Don't say that. The sterling matriarch values Ethan very much. Laura's voice rose. What kind of value is that? The way Miss Sophia treats Evan. Now that's real value. She looked at Sophia fawningly. I heard there were no rooms available at all yesterday. Even families with good standing had to wait. It was all thanks to Miss Sophia's help that Mrs. Anderson got this VIP room. Sophia looked at me with a humble smile. My aunt didn't know about this, or she would have helped too. It was just a small thing I could do. Even if Miss Sterling knew, she wouldn't have given you a second thought. Laura mocked me again. No matter how much you suck up to them, they'll just treat you like a stray dog they're toying with. I clenched my fists, not wanting to argue in the hospital room. Chloe, who had just arrived outside, heard everything, her face turning cold. Mark instantly understood his boss's meaning, cleared his throat, and walked into the room. Mrs. Anderson, I'm here to extend Miss Sterling's well wishes. Is this room comfortable for you? The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Sophia, who was completely stunned. Laura was taken aback, then smiled. Miss Sophia, so you were the one who asked Miss Chloe to arrange this room? Sophia's face stiffened, but Mark chuckled. This was arranged by Mr. Anderson, who asked my boss for help. Miss Sophia, did you also ask the boss? Sophia was so embarrassed she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. I made a lot of calls at the time to several people. I must have been mistaken. Evan clenched his fists, feeling utterly humiliated. Eleanor broke the awkward silence. Thank you, Miss Sterling. The room is very comfortable. When I'm feeling better, I'll go visit the matriarch. As long as you're comfortable, Mr. Anderson won't have to worry, and our matriarch will be happy, Mark said. His words were clearly meant to elevate me, and the hearts of the others in the room sank. Eleanor, however, was genuinely happy. I glanced at Laura, my expression full of mockery. Laura was furious. You little brat, what are you so smug about? Shut up, Robert roared. My wife is sick and needs to rest. What are you barking about in here? Go home. Laura shot me a hateful glare, covered her face, and ran out. I looked towards the bed. Ma'am, how did you sleep last night? Eleanor's hand instinctively tightened around the small medicine bottle under her blanket. I slept very well. It's been a long time since I've slept this well. That's good. I'll be going now. Mark and I left the room. Chloe was leaning against the hallway wall, looking at her phone, the light and shadow playing on her cool profile. Seeing me, she said, Grandma was worried and insisted I come see for myself. Although her voice was distant, my heart felt full. Thank you. The hospital room door opened, and Sophia and Evan walked out. Seeing me standing with Chloe, Evan looked as if he were facing a great enemy. Sophia instinctively demanded, Aunt Chloe, what are you doing here? Chloe's eyes were mocking. I don't believe I need to report my whereabouts to you. The immense pressure made Sophia's palms sweat. She looked at me with jealousy. Mr. Anderson, you've been at the hospital taking care of great-grandma this whole time. Doesn't your wife mind? I was a bit confused, glanced at Chloe, and said with a half-smile, she probably doesn't mind. Sophia's face changed drastically. Chloe suddenly spoke. Are you going back to the room? Grandma is waiting for you. I smiled faintly. Let's go back. We turned and left, leaving a sinister-looking Sophia behind. She returned to Eleanor's room, and while tidying the bedding, she exclaimed, Why is there a bottle of medicine on the bed? Robert frowned. Isn't that the unlabeled medicine Ethan gave you? Eleanor, why did you pick it back up? I took one last night, and I think it helped, Eleanor explained. How is that possible? It was clearly the sleeping pills that worked. Robert snatched the bottle. Who knows where he got this medicine? What if it makes you sick? Don't throw it away. I'll try not taking the other one tonight and see which medicine actually works. Late that night, Eleanor started coughing uncontrollably again. Nancy held the so-called miracle sleeping pills, but they had no effect. Eleanor's face was flushed from coughing. Nancy then rushed out to retrieve my medicine. Just as she was about to give it to her, Evan grabbed her hand. Mom, could this medicine be what's making the cough worse? It's better not to take something from an unknown source. Robert also said angrily, that Ethan, Eleanor, you're so good to him, and he tries to harm you with medicine. Eleanor was coughing too hard to speak, but she stared intently at Nancy. Nancy, ever loyal, ignored the pressure and put the pill in her mistress's mouth. The coughing stopped instantly. Eleanor let out a long breath, certain now that it was Ethan's medicine that had worked. The others moved to the outer room. Evan's face was pale. Dad, Ethan actually managed to get a miracle drug. How could he have the means? He must have asked Miss Sterling to buy it for him. Robert frowned deeply. It seems the Sterling matriarch really does value him. In the VIP room, Chloe was chatting with her grandmother. What did you have for lunch today? The old woman thought for a long time. Porridge? No, that's not it. Was it noodles? You brat, am I right? Chloe smiled and nodded, but her heart sank. They had rice for lunch. Her grandmother had forgotten again. Her memory seemed to be deteriorating more and more. I suddenly spoke up lazily. Grandma, what color were Miss Sterling's earrings yesterday? The old woman immediately replied, purple. That brat is so particular. She even wore diamond cufflinks. And the day before? The day before they were blue. I bought those blue earrings for her. I smiled faintly at Chloe, saying pointedly, Grandma remembers the things she cares about very clearly. Chloe looked at me. I was lounging on a beanbag chair, casually playing with my phone. My words just now were meant to comfort her. Her anxious heart seemed to slowly calm down. The old woman suddenly smiled. Grandson-in-law, was I right about everything? I nodded. You were. Did you see that, you brat? My grandson-in-law even remembers what you wear every day so clearly. He has you in his heart. I was completely stunned. I just have a photographic memory. I really didn't make a conscious effort to remember. I was about to explain, but I saw Chloe just staring at her computer, ignoring me. What I didn't notice was that the tips of her ears were slightly red. I went back to studying the materials on my phone. I still had no leads on the final stages of the Alzheimer's research. I stood up to go for a walk. I had just taken the dog downstairs when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around to see Laura's gambling-addicted brother, my uncle, Gary. Hey nephew, long time no see. I took a step back. What are you doing here? Well, I heard my dear nephew has managed to get in with the Sterling family. Your uncle's a little short on cash lately. Think you could lend me some money? I sneered. I don't have any. You've been taking such good care of that old lady, and she hasn't given you any money? I narrowed my eyes. Not yet, but maybe she will in the future. Gary gave a sleazy grin. Well, when she does, you have to lend some to your uncle. If you give me enough, I might even tell you a secret. He chuckled and walked away. I scoffed. Just then, my phone rang. I picked it up and saw it was Eleanor calling. Meanwhile, in the other hospital room, Evan, frustrated that Drivey hadn't replied and pressured by Sophia, stole Eleanor's phone while she was asleep. He found Ethan in her contacts and dialed the number. When the call connected, my voice was soft. Hello, Mrs. Anderson. Is something wrong? Evan froze. Ethan? He stared in disbelief. He would never mistake that voice. My heart sank, and my voice turned colder. Evan, what are you doing with Mrs. Anderson's phone? This is your number? I'm a bit flustered. What nonsense are you talking about? Evan finally realized that Ethan's name also had a similar sound, and Eleanor sometimes called him by a nickname. He breathed a huge sigh of relief. Evan, putting on a facade, said viciously, I just wanted to tell you, even if you use the old matriarch to get close to Miss Chloe, you'll be nothing more than a toy at best. Miss Chloe has a husband, but I'm different. I'm going to marry Sophia and become a proper son-in-law of the Sterling family. Congratulations, then. In a powerful family, it's not just about feelings. With Drive E on my side, I'll always be invincible. After hanging up, my mouth twitched. Since when did I become Evan's secret weapon? Immediately after, the Drive E iMessage account under Eleanor's name pinged. It was Evan again. I answered the call with a voice changer activated. Evan's tone was extremely respectful. Hello, Drive E. I apologize for bothering you. I'm Eleanor Anderson's son, Evan. Sterling Corp would like to invite you to join their RD team. My mother also thinks it's a good idea. Would you be interested? I cut him off coldly. I am only responsible for companies under Mrs. Anderson's name. Then I hung up. Monday arrived, and I went back to work at Sterling Corporation. Just as I left the hospital and was about to hail a cab, a Bentley pulled up smoothly beside me. Chloe stared straight ahead and said, Get in. Grandma told me to give you a ride to work. Chloe glanced at me. For a photo. I got into the back seat. She held up her phone and took a picture of us. I made a peace sign and smiled brightly. Chloe seemed momentarily dazed. Once at the office, I headed straight for the archives on the 60th floor. At that moment, the RD department was announcing a promotion. Sophia was being made vice president, the reason being that she had successfully recruited Drive E. In the top floor office, Mark was reporting my movements. His purpose in joining the company is to access the archives. He's been in the library all morning and hasn't even had lunch. A glint appeared in Chloe's eyes, and she went downstairs alone to find me. In front of the neuroscience section, I was on a ladder, reaching for a book on the highest shelf. I was ecstatic when I got the book, but I missed a step and fell, landing right on top of Chloe. Realizing it was her, I quickly got up. "I'm so sorry, that was an accident." Chloe took a moment to recover before standing up, the tips of her ears red, though she pretended not to be flustered. The atmosphere was a bit awkward, so I made an excuse and slipped away. Before I left, I hid the important book in an inconspicuous corner. When I returned to the library that afternoon, I found the book was gone. I was completely confused. Then it hit me. There was only one person in the entire company who could take a book like that. On the top floor, Chloe was flipping through the dense neuroscience text, her brow furrowed. Mark was muttering beside her. "Boss, Ethan is so ungrateful. He's not here to work at all." "That's right. He was never here to work," Chloe replied faintly. Mark asked, "Should I return this book?" Chloe tapped her finger on the cover. Remembering the hopeful look in my eyes earlier, she felt an inexplicable warmth in her chest. "Not just yet." At the end of the workday, the Bentley was waiting in the underground parking garage. Mark asked, "Boss, are we leaving?" "Not yet." Chloe was holding the thick research book. Only after I got into the car did she look up and say, "Let's go." Mark was a bit stunned. It didn't seem like the boss had arranged to leave with Mr. Anderson. Back at the hospital, as soon as we reached the VIP wing, we heard Laura's fawning voice. "Matriarch, I came especially to see you. It's such a coincidence that we're here." The sterling matriarch stood blocking the doorway, staring at her. "Get out. If you don't leave, I'll have someone beat you." Laura forced a smile. "I'm Ethan's mother." "Matriarch, aren't you fond of him? For his sake, you shouldn't treat me like this." "You are not his mother," the matriarch said with certainty. "Eleanor Anderson is his mother." A cold sweat instantly broke out on Laura's back, and she instinctively asked, "How do you know?" She was terrified. Only she and her brother, Gary, knew about switching the babies. How could the old woman be so sure? Seeing me and Chloe walk in, Laura guiltily composed herself, walked up to me and offered a thermos. "Ethan, Mom brought you some chicken soup. You've been working so hard taking care of the matriarch. Eat up and regain your strength." I found it ironic and asked flatly, "What do you want? Is it still that 2% of shares? The matriarch values you so much, she'd surely agree if you asked. Help your brother out, otherwise he won't be able to hold his head up in front of Sophia." My gaze was icy. "I won't help." Laura's face stiffened, and she threw herself on the floor, wailing. "Fine. I worked so hard to give birth to you, and now that you've climbed the social ladder, you've turned your back on me. Everyone, come and see. My son is an ungrateful wolf. He's ashamed of his mother's humble origins and wants to be someone else's grandson." The surrounding medical staff started pointing and whispering. I watched her impassively, a growing sense of helplessness washing over me. "Go ahead and make a scene. If you disturb the other patients, security will escort you out." With that, I walked straight past her. Laura was enraged. "Ungrateful wolf." She leaped up and threw the hot soup at me. "Watch out." A pair of cool hands pulled me into an embrace as Chloe stepped behind me, taking the full force of the hot liquid. My pupils contracted. I asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said, her brow slightly furrowed as she looked at the fleeing Laura. Inside the room, the old woman anxiously tugged at her clothes. "Quick, take it off. Let me see how bad the burn is. Did it blister? Does it hurt? Grandson-in-law, come apply some ointment for her." The old woman shoved the ointment into my hand and shooed everyone else out. "Grandson-in-law, I'm leaving her to you." Only the two of us remained in the room. Chloe said softly, "Grandma is just being difficult. I'll have a nurse come in." "I'll do it." He moved behind her. The twilight cast shadows on her back as I gently applied the ointment with my fingertips. She remained silent the entire time. After I finished applying the medicine, she tidied her hair. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson. You're welcome. But you really didn't have to block that for me. If you were hurt, Grandma would be very upset." Chloe looked at me steadily. "Have you forgotten? You are my husband now." My heart skipped a beat. I had a feeling that this Chloe was somehow different. I'm gonna step out for a bit." "To do what?" "To get revenge." I had intended to find Laura, but in the hallway, I spotted Evan with my uncle, Gary. Gary was rubbing his hands together. "My dear nephew, your uncle is a little short on cash." Evan suppressed his anger. "I already gave you my entire allowance for this month." "Well, I can't survive like this. If you don't give me more, I'll just tell him the truth. He'll definitely pay a handsome price for it." I pushed the door open, my voice cold. "What truth?" Evan jumped in fright. "Ethan, what are you doing? Were you eavesdropping on us?" I looked directly at Gary and continued, "What truth are you talking about? I can give you money. How much can you give?" Gary's eyes lit up. Evan said frantically, "I'll figure out a way to get you the money. Now get out." Before leaving, Gary whispered to me, "Nephew, my secret is always for sale to you. As long as you can meet the price, I'll definitely sell it." I sent a message to Jessica. "Look into Gary's situation." I turned to see Evan about to leave and said faintly, "If you don't want people to know, don't do it in the first place." "Did you think I wouldn't be able to find out about you and Gary?" Evan froze. "What are you talking about? I don't understand. What kind of dirt does he have on you that makes you pay him every month? What nonsense are you spouting? I suggest you use your energy to think about your own future instead of wasting it on me." "Where's Laura?" "She's my mother. How would I know where she is?" Evan quickly fled. I called Laura. "I need you to come back and apologize to Miss Sterling." "I won't. Miss Sterling will never forgive me. You apologize for me. You're my son. It's your duty to pay for my mistakes. If that's how you want it, then don't blame me for calling the police." "Why would you call the police? I'm your mother. The person I was trying to hit was you. It's a mother's right to discipline her child." I hung up. For injuring Chloe, Laura was ultimately detained for 48 hours. When I returned to the room, Chloe was in a meeting in her van downstairs. I sat by the bed. "I'm sorry." The old woman waved her hand. "Grandson-in-law, we're family, why say that? Besides, seeing that brat stand up for you made me happier than anything." The word family brought a warmth to my eyes. At that moment, Evan scraped together $50,000 for Gary, adding a note, "Keep your mouth shut, or neither of us will have a good ending." He was terrified and decided he needed to marry Sophia as soon as possible. Once he was a Sterling son-in-law, even if his identity was exposed, he would still have a way out. At 9 that night, Sophia suddenly showed up to see Evan. Evan was pleasantly surprised. "Sophia, what are you doing here?" Sophia asked sharply. "Are you sure you've settled things with Drive E?" Evan's eyes flickered. "Of course." "Then arrange a meeting for me with Drive E." Evan nervously fiddled with his fingers. "Drive E is out of the country. I'll arrange it as soon as he gets back." "Sophia, is there a problem you need help with? I can contact him for you." Sophia stared at him suspiciously. "I've emailed you the problem. Forward it to Drive E and have him help solve it." "Okay, I'll forward it to him right now." Evan knew Eleanor's email password by heart. He had discovered that Drive E always replied to Eleanor's emails instantly and without asking questions, which gave him the confidence to lie. He quickly forwarded the email from his phone. "Drive E usually replies to my messages right away." "Just a moment, Sophia." In the VIP room, my phone vibrated. I glanced at it. It was an email from Eleanor. "Ethan, can you help solve this problem?" The attachment was, as expected, a technical problem from Sterling Corporation. I scoffed. Evan was actually using Eleanor's name to ask for my help. I replied coldly, "I am only responsible for the Anderson family. Sterling Corp's problems are not my concern." A notification sounded on Evan's phone. He opened the email with a broad smile, but the smile froze the moment he read the content. Sophia frowned. "What's wrong?" Evan forced down his panic and chuckled awkwardly. "Drive E said this problem will take a few days to solve." Sophia breathed a sigh of relief. "That's normal, this problem is quite difficult. I made a bet with someone on Ethan's team that we'd have a solution by Friday. That should be fine, right?" "No problem," Evan said, but his eyes darted nervously. When Sophia returned to the Sterling estate, her father, Richard, gave her a rare smile. "As expected of my daughter, to be able to recruit Drive E and establish yourself in the RD department so quickly." Her mother, Melissa, was crying with joy. Sophia clenched her fists. Since she had chosen the path of a strategic marriage, she would not regret it. And as for Evan, he could only be hers. On my end, I sneezed and continued working at my desk. My glass was empty, and suddenly a shadow fell over me. Chloe had refilled my glass and placed it on the small table. I was slightly taken aback. "Thank you." "You're welcome." "It was nothing." Chloe sat back down naturally. The old woman watched us, grinning from ear to ear, and had already started flipping through a dictionary to pick out names for her great-grandchildren. The next day, in the RD department, Sophia stopped me in the break room. "There's an industry networking event for renewable energy tonight. All the big names in the field will be there. I heard Drive E might even make an appearance." I didn't break my stride. "And the Sterling RD department has invitations. I can take you to see what it's like, meet some people." "No thanks." I walked into my office without looking back. My team lead, Linda, scoffed. "She thinks she can buy him with one invitation? Ethan isn't that short-sighted." Sophia's face was cold. "You should understand that I can offer him better resources. Not just anyone can go to that kind of event. At least I can get him in." At the end of the day, Linda called out to me. "I have a work thing tonight. Come with me." I didn't think much of it, sent Chloe a message saying I was working late, and got in her car. When we arrived at the event, a server stopped Linda at the door. "I'm sorry, Ms. Bridge. The guest list from Sterling Corp was submitted in advance. and your name is not on it. Sophia walked out, holding a glass of champagne, and squinted at her. Linda, Team B's research tasks are heavy. I assumed you wouldn't be coming, so I declined on your behalf when I submitted the list. It's probably too late to add you now. You should just go home. Linda was furious. Sophia, you've gone too far. What right do you have to decline for me? I'm the vice president of RD. Of course, I can make decisions for you. Sophia then turned to me. Do you see now, Ethan? Without my approval, you can't even get through the door. I calmly raised my eyes. Is that so? I took out the electronic invitation Jessica had emailed me and showed it to the server. Can we go in now? The server glanced at it once and immediately stepped aside respectfully. Please, come in. Sophia's face changed drastically. She stared at the personalized invitation on my phone. On what authority did you receive this invitation? None of your damn business. I turned off the screen and said to Linda, let's go. Linda was overjoyed and led me into the venue, introducing me to industry leaders. As we were chatting, Evan and Sophia approached. The senior executives, like a Mr. Thompson, immediately swarmed around Evan. Mr. Anderson, when will Drive E finally make an appearance so we can consult with him? Evan basked in the attention, feigning modesty. I'm just here with my fiancé today. Sophia also used the opportunity to network. Linda was pushed to the side and whispered to me, Jessica will be here later. Don't be shy. Be bold, go offer her a toast. So many people want to meet her. My mouth twitched. I'll introduce you later. Linda thought I was just bragging. Just then, there was a commotion at the entrance. Jessica had arrived. Evan confidently straightened his suit and walked towards me. Ethan, do you need me to introduce you to Ms. Jones? Sophia added mockingly, do you think Jessica is some kind of flirt? Countless handsome men have tried to get her attention, and she's ignored them all. Do you really think you're that charming? Evan led Sophia towards Jessica. Ms. Jones, Before he could finish, Jessica swept past them like a gust of wind and, to the astonishment of the entire room, rushed up to me with a delighted expression. What are you doing here? The scene plunged the entire venue into a dead silence. Evan's outstretched hand froze in midair, the smile on his face solidifying into a comical look of horror. Sophia was even more stunned, nearly dropping her champagne glass. Ms. Jones, have you mistaken him for someone else? Evan's voice trembled. He's Ethan, just a freeloader in our family. Jessica didn't even spare him a glance, her eyes fixed intently on me. Boss, I sent you dozens of emails inviting you to attend, and you kept saying you were busy. Turns out you were just visiting incognito. I gave a helpless smile. I'm here with my supervisor for a private matter. Boss, Sophia shrieked, her voice cracking. Jessica, you called him boss? Isn't he Ethan, the freeloader living off his trashy wife? Jessica turned, her face cold, her eyes like daggers. Miss Sterling, please have some self-respect. The man standing before you is the core technical expert your Sterling Corp has been desperately trying to recruit, the legendary and never-before-seen Drive E. As she finished, a wave of suppressed gasps rippled through the crowd. Impossible! Evan completely lost his composure, pointing at me and roaring. Drive E has clearly been in contact with my mother this whole time. How could he be this illegitimate son? Ethan, what did you give Jessica to make her put on this act with you? I strode forward and looked at him coldly. Evan, did you really think I didn't know you were stealing Mrs. Anderson's phone to send emails? Didn't you just receive the message? I am only responsible for the Anderson family? Evan's face instantly turned deathly pale, his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. Sophia swayed on her feet, looking at me with eyes full of regret and disbelief. She had always thought I was struggling in the mud and had tried to humiliate me with $50,000, but in the blink of an eye, I had become a god she had to look up to. Just then, a commotion came from the entrance, and Eleanor walked in, supported by Nancy. Her complexion was rosy, her step steady, showing no trace of yesterday's illness. Ethan, Eleanor walked straight to me, her eyes filled with tears. That medicine, you developed it yourself, didn't you? I nodded. Are you feeling better? Better than ever. Eleanor turned to look at Robert and Laura, her voice cool and firm. Robert, didn't you always want to meet Drive E? He's right here. And what's more, my trusted confidant, Charles, has already told me the truth about what happened all those years ago. She stepped forward, staring at Laura. Laura, did you think you could hide switching the babies at the hospital forever? I've been investigating and observing for years. As a woman, you ignored your own son but were unusually attentive to someone else's. I knew something was wrong long ago. I've already had the paternity test done. She threw down a report. Robert took it with trembling hands. After seeing the results, he whipped around and slapped Laura across the face. You dared to switch my son with your bastard. Laura screamed and collapsed completely. Evan looked at the report and cried out in despair. No, I'm the young master of the Anderson family. I'm the heir. I watched all of this with cold indifference. Status, wealth, blood ties, all the things that had once bound me, now seemed as light as a feather. Boss, the car is ready. Jessica reminded me softly. I turned to leave, but my hand was gently caught. Chloe had appeared behind me at some point. She had changed into a dark, elegant dress, the burn on her back hidden beneath the fabric, but the look in her eyes had lost its usual iciness. "Mr. Anderson," she said softly, a hint of reliance in her voice that even she might not have noticed. "Grandma is still at the hospital, waiting for us to come home." I looked at her, and the softest part of my heart felt a gentle nudge. "Okay, let's go home." As we walked out of the ballroom, Sophia rushed out, her face streaked with tears. "Ethan, I was wrong. Can we go back to how we were in college?" I didn't stop walking, and without looking back, I tossed over my shoulder, "Miss Sterling, you once said an illegitimate son and a piece of trash were a perfect match. I think you and the current Evan are the real match made in heaven." Behind me was Sophia's desperate sobbing, and ahead was the glittering nightscape of Los Angeles. In the car, Chloe suddenly asked me, "That neuroscience book, when are you going to give it back to me?" I raised an eyebrow at her. "Is the CEO checking up on me?" She turned to look out the window, her ears slightly red. "I'm just afraid that if you run off one day, Grandma will tear down Sterling Corporation." I chuckled and casually put my arm around her shoulder. This time, she didn't pull away. "Don't worry, the contract isn't up yet. Besides, I haven't officially been promoted from fake husband to real husband." 3 months later, on the day the clinical trial for the Alzheimer's drug was successfully completed, the first autumn rain fell on Los Angeles. When I came out of the lab, I saw Chloe standing at the entrance, holding a black umbrella, wearing that same dark, elegant dress I had seen so many times. She seemed to have been waiting for a long time, and the ends of her hair were dotted with fine raindrops. "Grandma sent me to pick you up." Her tone was still faint, but I could now see something different in her usually expressionless face. The tips of her ears were red again. I walked over, naturally took the umbrella from her, and pulled her a little closer under it. "The CEO herself coming to pick me up. I'm flattered." She glanced at me but said nothing, though she didn't move away either. On the way to the Sterling estate, she suddenly spoke. "That divorce agreement." I turned to look at her. She paused, her gaze fixed on the rainy scenery flashing by outside the window, her voice so soft it was almost a whisper. "Grandma tore it up." I was stunned for a moment, then I smiled. "So what do we do now?" Chloe paused, a rare look of embarrassment on her face. She said, "She went to a lot of trouble to find me a grandson-in-law, so we can't get divorced." I just looked at her. She finally turned her head to meet my gaze. Outside the window, the rain fell softly, and it was so quiet in the car we could hear each other breathe. Her eyes were very bright, like starlight after a rain. "Ethan," she said my name, her voice cool but with a softness even she might not have noticed. "Your medicine, has Grandma started taking it? The first course of treatment begins tonight." She nodded, was silent for a moment, and then said, "Thank you." I looked at her, suddenly wanting to tease her. "Just a verbal thank you?" She was taken aback, seemingly not expecting me to say that, and a look of helplessness appeared on her usually frosty face. I laughed, reached out and ruffled her hair. "I'm just kidding." She glared at me but didn't pull away from my hand. The car stopped in front of the Sterling estate. The rain had stopped, and a sliver of sunset was visible on the horizon. The old woman was already waiting at the door. Seeing us get out, she immediately greeted us with a beaming smile, grabbing my hand with one of hers and Chloe's with the other, pulling us inside. "Hurry, hurry, we were just waiting for you two for dinner." At the dinner table, the old woman kept putting food on my plate and then on Chloe's, muttering, "Grandson-in-law, eat more. You brat, you eat more too. You're both too thin." For once, Chloe didn't object to being called brat, just ate quietly, occasionally glancing up at me. After dinner, the old woman had us sit in the courtyard for tea. The sunset painted the entire yard in warm orange hues, and the air smelled of fresh earth after the rain. The old woman suddenly said, "Grandson-in-law, you brat, I have something to tell you." Chloe and I both looked at her. The old woman was smiling, but there was a twinkle in her eye. "I remember now." I was stunned. "I remember how you two got your marriage certificate." It turned out that our marriage had been entirely arranged by the old woman. We had been legally married without our knowledge. The old woman looked at me with a smile. "Grandson-in-law, you're not mad at me, are you?" I looked at Chloe, then back at the old woman, and suddenly smiled. "Not at all." The old woman nodded in satisfaction, looked at both of us, and suddenly asked, "So, when are you two planning to have the wedding?" Chloe couldn't sit still any longer and stood up to leave. The old woman grabbed her. "Where are you running off to? You're already married and still so shy." I watched this scene with a smile, suddenly feeling that this was probably the life I had always wanted. Chloe finally broke free from her grandmother's grasp, came to my side, and said softly, "Let's go." I stood up to say goodbye to the old woman. She smiled and waved, then secretly slipped a note into my hand. Once we were in the car, I opened the note. It read, "Grandson-in-law, if that brat bullies you, you just tell me, and I'll sort her out for you." I couldn't help but laugh. Chloe leaned over to see. After reading it, she was silent for a couple of seconds before saying, "Grandma has nice handwriting." I turned to look at her. She met my gaze and suddenly asked, "Ethan, What are you laughing at? I looked at her and said seriously, I'm laughing at how lucky I am. She paused for a moment. What? I got a wife without spending a single cent, I said. Even though it was fake, it feels like it's about to become real. She stared at me for a few seconds, then averted her gaze to the window, but I saw it, the slight, subtle curve of her lips. The car moved slowly into the night, the lights of Los Angeles streaming past the window. Chloe, I said, are you free tomorrow? She turned her head to look at me. I looked at her, a smile in my eyes. Let's tear up that divorce agreement. She was silent for 2 seconds, then gave a soft The sound was faint, but it carried more weight than any promise in the world. Outside, the Los Angeles night was deep, and I felt that for us, the night was just beginning.